What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto fox form made women lose control around him? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. It's been 8 years since the tragic incident of the 9-tailed fox attacking Konohagakure, of which came a boy who the late 4th Hokage had sealed the demon fox into. Itachi Uchiha watched as the boy walked through the streets with a group of adults following him, yelling out to him, "Demon fox! You deserve to die. You don't belong here. How dare you show your face in this village?" He frowned, knowing that it was not the boy's fault that he had the fox sealed inside him. He was glad he was wearing his Anbu mask as his teammates would not be able to see his frown, because as an Anbu member, you're not supposed to show emotion. It was his squad's turn to watch over the young boy, something directed by the 3rd Hokage to oversee the boy's safety and to make sure that he didn't lose control of the demon fox inside him. Itachi didn't mind looking after the boy at all. The boy reminded Itachi of himself, lonely, sad, misplaced, yet the look in the boy's eyes showed a hidden intelligence. Looking to his right, he saw 2 other Anbu with him, one wearing a cat-like mask with 3 red stripes on it. Her purple hair reached down to the middle of her back and was held against her back by a 5-foot katana. Next to her was a man wearing a bird-like mask, with a thick black stripe going through the middle of the mask. He had short spiky black hair. Itachi turned his attention back to the boy and the group following him as they started to get more violent, with the angry mob beginning to throw rocks at the back of the boy's head. As the boy neared an alleyway, Itachi saw someone push the boy into the alley until he was hidden from sight from the rest of village. The angry mob followed the violent aggressor into the alleyway and began to beat the 8-year-old boy into a bloodied heap of unconsciousness, until they thought he was dead. The mob left the alleyway, whistling and going in different directions, pretending as if nothing ever happened, each of them thinking to themselves, "The demon child is finally dead." The blonde 8-year-old boy, Naruto, laid there in a puddle of his own blood as he slipped in and out of consciousness. Stupid people. What did I ever do to them? Why do they hate me so much? He thought back to the first time he remembered someone being mean to him. Flashback. Naruto was 5 years old and was skipping rocks over the lake near the Uchiha compound when a couple of the Uchiha clan members started to call him names and throw rocks at him. He turned around to look at his aggressors. "What did I ever do to you guys to be called such names? I don't even know you all." The group of teenagers looked amongst themselves, unsure who was going to speak first, when a teenager wearing the standard Konoha ninja gear stepped up. "It's because you don't belong here. You're nothing but a hindrance to this village. You have no potential as a ninja and no real reason to be here. So you might as well be gone, you filthy demon scum." He grinned as he spoke this to Naruto, seeing the hurt inside his eyes. He decided to walk up to the boy and picked him up and walked over the docks and threw him into the water. Naruto started to flail his arms about as he had no idea how to swim at the time. Looking back over to the docks, he saw the group of Uchiha members laughing as they walked away. Slowly, Naruto began to keep his head above the water and swam back towards the bank of the lake, soaked and cold from head to toe. After that, Naruto decided that he would become a great ninja and become the Hokage so that everyone had to respect him and acknowledge him. He began reading books about chakra and jutsus, having to resort to stealing books from the library due to the librarian throwing kunai at him to keep him out. Flashback end. Naruto woke up in a large room that had water covering the floor. "Great, I'm in a sewer or something." He decided to get up and walked around and came to a large jail cell with a tag on the centermost post with the kanji for "seal" on it. He was about to step inside the jail cell when suddenly a giant orange fox slammed its front feet down in front of Naruto and glared at him through the cell. So, the runt finally decides to show himself. "I'm guessing you want my help in healing your wounds again, huh? You really should learn to defend yourself, kid." The demon fox grinned at Naruto, as he had already began to heal his container's wounds, which ranged from broken bones to punctured lungs to severe bleeding. The demon fox had no intention of dying so early, not that he really could die. He was a tailed beast after all and was pure chakra. However, the idea that it would take quite some time before he would come back to the realm of reality was undesirable to him. Naruto looked at the fox incredulously, thinking that he had gone crazy from the beatings. "You're the Kyuubi, aren't you? You're the reason everyone in the village hates me." Naruto looked at the fox, mad and sad at the same time. "You've got it all wrong, kid." The demon fox began, rage running through him as he was being judged by this runt of a human. I was forced to attack the village. A masked ninja pulled me out of my previous container and controlled me with his ocular prowess. Had it not been for him, I would never have attacked the village in the first place. So how dare you accuse me of such things? You're lucky I'm even here considering how often I have to heal your wounds. Kyuubi slammed his paw on the ground, causing a wave of water to splash over Naruto, which made him frown but made the Kyuubi laugh. Naruto eyed the fox and sat down, crossing his arms and glared at him. How do I know you're telling the truth? Everything I've read about you says that you attacked the village out of the blue and killed hundreds of shinobi and villagers. What makes you think I'll believe you? The Kyuubi, outraged that someone as small as this child was going to question him, the nine-tailed fox, the strongest of all the bijus. The fox looked at the child and growled, "You dare to question me? After keeping you alive for 8 years, you dare to question me? I could have let you die the first time you found yourself shoved into an alley. I could have taken over your body when you were at your weakest and gone on my way. And yet, you sit here, in front of me, the nine-tailed fox, and question my statements on an event that you weren't even awake for? How dare you?" The Kyuubi rages on and reaches out to hit Naruto with a swipe of his claw, but Naruto is just out of reach. "Come closer, you little shit, so I can show you who you are dealing with." Naruto just looked at the claws that were swiping away in front of him, frowning, knowing that the Kyuubi was right. He had no idea what actually transpired that night. There were no records of a masked ninja anywhere in any history books that he'd read. He looked up at the Kyuubi and smiled, sort of looking like a fox-like smile with the whiskers he had on each side of his cheek. "You're right, Kyuubi-san, I don't know what happened that night. Maybe I should believe you, but why show yourself to me now? After 8 years of torture, why now?" The Kyuubi looked at the runt before him and brought his clawed paw back behind the barrier. "It's not a matter of me showing myself to you, but you escaping into your mind. Right now, while your broken and beaten body is in the real world, you are here in your mind completely unharmed. And I am here as well, locked behind this sealed barrier until a time you can learn to defeat me. And you will defeat me one day, as I refuse to have a weak human as my Jinchuriki." The Kyuubi grinned to Naruto, having a hidden meaning behind his words. Naruto looked at the demon fox, "And how exactly am I supposed to defeat you? You're a giant fox, one of the tailed beasts. I'm going to help train you." The Kyuubi frowned, pausing from his speaking, sensing 3 chakra signatures closing in around Naruto, "But we'll get to that later. For now, you need to return to reality, 3 shinobi are coming towards you." Naruto looked at the fox, "How'd I leave? Just stop thinking about escaping from reality and face it." The Kyuubi stated as Naruto nodded and began to leave the sealed mindscape. Naruto opened his eyes to see a cat-masked Anbu healing him. He slowly turned his head to see a bird-masked Anbu and dog-masked Anbu, smiling softly. He smiled softly at the Anbu members, glad they were helping him and not hurting him. "Thank you, Neko-san," he said softly. "So why are you guys here?" He looked at the Anbu members, taking in their different traits and masks. The cat-masked Anbu had straight purple hair that reached her back with a sword behind her back. The dog-masked Anbu had pitch black hair that went down to his chin with a sword behind his back, while the bird-masked Anbu had spiky, unruly black hair with no sword, and all 3 of them wore the standard Anbu outfits of black leggings, boots, and shirts. "Seems only 2 of them know Kenjutsu. We're here on orders of the 3rd Hokage," Itachi stated through his dog mask. He felt sorrow for Naruto, the life he had, how he was treated. No one should be treated that way, let alone the son of the late 4th Hokage. "However, it seems the villagers who ambushed you believe you're dead." Itachi looked at his teammates for a split second before looking back towards Naruto. "So, if you like, I can help create you a new identity, a new life, and a—" He was interrupted by his fellow bird Anbu teammate. "Whoa, we can't do that. No one is supposed to know our identity, and I'm sure if you exposed yourself to him, he would blabber, the Hokage would find out." Itachi thought about this for a second. He looked at his friend. "So you'd rather watch him get back up and beat again?" he countered. His friend just looked at him through his mask, unsure of what to say. He just nodded his head towards Naruto, giving the Anbu captain the go-ahead. Itachi grabbed a piece of paper from his pocket and a pencil and wrote down something on it, handing it to his teammate. "Go get these items and then report to the hidden training ground." The bird-masked Anbu took the paper and looked at it, before looking at Naruto. He hasn't even said anything about whether or not he wants a new image. Naruto watched the two talk as he laid there getting healed. As soon as the cat-masked Anbu was done healing him, she helped him sit up. There you go, good as new. Though you could use some new clothes that aren't so bloody. She looked over to her team captain and nodded. It was their silent communication that made them such a great team. Just a simple nod and they already knew what they needed to do. Naruto-kun, would you like to have a new life? She asked him sweetly. Naruto looked at her and then the other two. What do you mean by new life? He wasn't all that sure what they meant. Itachi spoke up afterward. What we mean is that we will get you a new outfit, new name, new everything. Basically, you get to start over as someone else. To give an added bonus, I'll even teach you how to be a ninja. The two teammates looked at him, practically breaking their necks. You won't even train your own brother, but yet you'll train him? The spiky-haired Anbu said. Naruto is different from my brother, he doesn't seem to have any hate in him. Naruto stood up and gave a fox-like grin. Sure, I'd love to have you teach me Inu-sensei. I'll become the best ninja ever, even better than the Hokage. I'll become Hokage and make everyone acknowledge me. Believe it. He gave a thumbs up to the masked Itachi, happy that someone is actually being nice to him. Itachi looked at his teammate. Now will you go pick up those items? The bird-masked Anbu nodded his head and shined away, a wisp of smoke where he once stood. Itachi looked at the cat-masked woman. Pick him up and follow me to the hidden grounds. He stated towards his teammate, before shunshining away to the hidden grounds. The purple-haired Anbu got down on a knee and put her arms behind her, signaling Naruto to climb onto her back so she can meet up with Itachi. Feeling his weight on her back as he climbed on, she grabbed his legs as he wrapped his arms around her neck before jumping onto the roofs and traveling to the hidden grounds. It took a couple minutes to get there by roof traveling. Once there, she put Naruto down and walked over to stand beside her teammate. We'll wait till Tori-san is here before we begin teaching Naruto. He stated matter-of-factly. Naruto looked at the two ninjas and sat down crossing his legs. He put his hands together in the form of two connects, U.S. and entered back into his mind with the Kyuubi. Back so soon are we? The Nine-Tails spoke to his container. I wanted to ask you how you were going to train me if I'm already going to be getting trained by Inu-sensei. A shinobi could have multiple senseis. Each teacher brings their own expertise to the table. Honestly, if you're being trained by this Anbu, it'll make my job easier as I won't have to explain so much. However, I have more battle experience and have lived a lot longer than this puny human has, so I'll be able to help more as well. Don't think for a second though I'm going to be easy on you just because you're a child. The fox grins at Naruto, wondering how much the boy will be able to take of his training. Naruto just looked at the fox, thinking about what the Kyuubi just said to him. Kyuubi, why do you want to train me? I refuse to have a weak container. If you intend on being weak, I'll kill you myself. Roared the Kyuubi, causing Naruto to put his hands up in defense from the wave of winds the Kyuubi caused by his roaring. Okay, I get it, strong host, many teachers. So when are you going to start training me? That depends on what kind of training this human has for you. That's not fair. HMPH, was all that was said in return before the Kyuubi laid his head down on his paws and began to rest. Stupid fox, he thought to himself as he left his mind. Shisui Uchiha walked through the village's shops picking up what was on the slip of paper. Why's he going through all this trouble for that boy? Well, I have to admit, he is really ambitious. Almost as ambitious as me, maybe he has the same will of fire that I do. He mused to himself while looking for the final item, a mask. He wandered into the mask shop and was looking around. Good evening Anbu. What brings you here? Seems you already have a mask. Spoke the young shopkeeper. I'm looking for a mask for a friend, just a plain one for now until they can decide on one for themselves. He looked around, just looking for a plain non-marked masked. Ah, how about this one, completely white? The shopkeep said as he picked up one of the masks, thinking it unusual that an Anbu would be buying a mask for someone else. He looked up to see the Anbu member nod his head and took it to the register. That'll be 7,000 ryo. Shopkeep said, handing the mask to Shisui. Shisui paid the shopkeep and bowed his head, thank you for the mask. He walked out back into the fresh air and put the mask into the pouch he was asked to buy for Naruto. I wonder what Itachi will want to teach him first. Probably will want to find out his chakra nature first and then maybe do some demonstration on chakra control to find out how much chakra he has right now, which probably isn't much. However, he is an Uzumaki, so he should have a large reserve of chakra. Guess we'll find out soon. Shisui Shunshin ed away to the hidden grounds where Itachi had requested him to meet, showing up in a wisp of smoke. Naruto was looking around as he heard the rustle of clothes, signaling a newcomer. He looked over to see the bird-masked Anbu handing a pouch to, what he seemed to gather, was the Anbu team captain. "Give the pouch to Naruto." The captain stated simply, looking at Naruto, giving no hint of emotion with his voice. He'd had too much practice on keeping his emotions in check while he was in training to be an Anbu member, the same training his teammates went through. On top of that, he had his own personal things he had to deal with when he was off duty, his own personal demons to fight. He watched as the spiky-haired Anbu member tossed the pouch to Naruto. "Open it, you'll find supplies inside." Naruto opened the pouch and dumped it onto the ground in front of him before separating into different piles. He saw different types of tags. Two of the ones he noticed most were tags that had the kanji for chakra and gravity. There were 6 gravity seals and 2 chakra seals. He moved on to the next pile, which was a set of black clothes and open sandals, specifically his size. In the next pile was a group of 10 kunai and shuriken. Lastly, there was a plain white mask. Seems odd to have a set of black clothes and a white mask. He mused to himself as he picked up the mask, looking it over. Itachi looked at Naruto and cleared his throat until he got the boy's attention. He searched for any chakra signatures besides the ones in the clearing of the grounds. Not sensing any, he removed his mask and looked at Naruto. "My name is Itachi Uchiha and I will be teaching you the ways of the shinobi. First things first, you do want to be taught, correct?" he asked of Naruto, seeing the boy nod his head. "Excellent. Well, I don't know about these two, but if they wish to train you as well, they can." He paused a moment to see if they wanted to train Naruto as well, noticing both of them nod their heads. "Alright, to start off with, the outfit that you see in front of you is the standard Anbu outfit, obviously bought to fit you right now. And the mask is to hide your face. You can get a new mask later when you get the Ryo for it. Try not to ruin your clothes as we can't constantly afford to keep paying for new sets if you ruin them." Naruto nodded as he picked up the new set of clothes, glad to see he had multiple sets in the event of damage during training. "Now, do you know the Shadow Clone Jutsu?" Itachi asked of Naruto. "No, Itachi-sensei. I don't really know any jutsu. I know chakra control and that's about it," he responded back, excited he's going to be getting taught his first jutsu. "It's an A- rank, so don't be surprised if you fail it for a while." Itachi put his fingers together, and without saying anything, created a shadow clone of himself standing next to him. There is an extended version known as the multi-shadow clone jutsu, but all it is a creation of many shadow clones simultaneously at the same time, usually numbering in the hundreds. Spoke the bird Anbu. Naruto grinned a fox-like grin as he made the cross-hand signs and focused his chakra, yelling out, "Shadow Clone Jutsu." A wisp of smoke appeared next to Naruto with a half-baked clone that flopped over before poofing away. "I think it needs more chakra." Naruto tried it once again and once again, came to fail with a disappearing clone. I think I got it." He made the seals once more and finally created a standing copy of himself. He snickered and stuck a thumb out. "I did it. Believe it. So now what?" he asked, scratching his head. "Now, we go off and play a game of rock paper scissors so you can see the benefit of this jutsu. Which that it transfers its knowledge to the original." Itachi's clone and Naruto's clone went off away from where they could be seen and played a game of rock paper scissors, resulting in Itachi's win. After which, the clones poofed away, leading Naruto into the revelation that this will help increase his training. "Alright, now that we got that out of the way, we need to find out your chakra nature." He took a piece of paper out of his pouch and handed it to Naruto. "What do I do with this?" he asked, flipping the paper back and forth, not really sure what to do with it. He knew about chakra natures, but he had no idea how this piece of paper was going to tell him what it was. The cat Anbu shook her head. "You send your chakra into the paper. Either one of 5 things will happen. It'll either split, burn, crumple, or become wet, each representing one of the 5 basic elements. For me, I'm a water style user. Itachi-san is a fire style, and Tori-san is also fire style. There's more to chakra nature than just that, but we'll get to that point later down the road. For now, you just need to know which one you're more suited to. Naruto looked at the cat Anbu and did as was advised and sent chakra into the paper. Much to everyone's surprise, the paper split into 5 sections, each section acting the same way as the cat Anbu said it would. One section crumbled away into dirt, one section had a tear in it, one section became soggy and limp, one section caught fire, and the last section crumpled together. Each of the Anbu members looked on in surprised with anime eyes that he had a natural affinity to all 5 elements. Well, this is something unexpected, albeit very interesting. Must be the fox that allows him to have an affinity for each nature, considering a biju is just pure chakra. Itachi thought to himself, unsure how powerful Naruto might become. Well, seems you have a natural affinity for all 5 of the chakra natures, highly rare in a shinobi. Itachi stated, tilting his head slightly to the side. I wonder how vast his chakra levels are. Alright, go change behind those trees over there and then come back when you're done. He spoke to Naruto. Hi, Naruto exclaimed, giving a smart playful salute with his trademarked fox grin. Naruto picked up a set of clothes and ran off behind the trees and changed into the black outfit. They were abbot form fitting and they worked well with him. The boots gave added support for kicking and the pants and shirts hugged to him so that they wouldn't interfere with training or running. He folded his old clothes up and walked back out, carrying his clothes with him, setting them down. Alright, I'm changed. When do we begin training? Asked an overly excited Naruto, grinning happily. Soon, Naruto, soon. Next, what we're gonna do is put the gravity seals on you. Itachi stated as he walked over and picked up the 4 gravity seals. The gravity seals are activated by pouring chakra into them and increase the feeling of gravity over you. The more you can withstand of the gravity pulling down on you, the stronger you will get. Another benefit to the gravity seals is that Itachi was cut off by Naruto. Is that when they are not activated, I can move faster and am stronger than when they are activated. Naruto finished up, grinning. Actually, that's right, Itachi stated, hearing both his teammates snicker about him being cut off mid-sentence. Itachi beckoned Naruto over and had him take off the shirt so he could put the gravity seals on each shoulder, before moving on to putting seals on his wrists and ankles. After Naruto put his shirt back on, he looked around and shrugged his shoulders. I don't feel any different. He stated dumbly. The bird and cat Anbu shook their heads sadly. Before the bird Anbu spoke up, you need to push chakra into them. The seals are set up so that once chakra is poured into them, they stay at that level. So don't overdo it. As he finished, Naruto nodded and began to mold chakra into the seals and began feeling himself get pulled down more toward the earth, finding it increasingly difficult to stay standing. Only put enough chakra into the seals until it starts to feel hard to stand. Once you can stand up easily under that gravity, then we'll continue. Itachi stated as he walked Abbott away so that he and his teammates could talk amongst themselves about Naruto and what they just witnessed, without Naruto overhearing them. He has all 5 of the elemental natures, who knows what sort of Kekkei Genkei he can create. Said Shisui as he ate his rice ball. I mean, not even the first Hokage had all 5 elements. He stated thinking back on the legend of the first Hokage. I have never even heard of anyone having an affinity to all 5 elements besides Rikudo Sennin, and even that is only a myth at best. He continued eating his rice ball, looking over at Itachi, wondering what he was thinking. That is true Shisui-san, however, Naruto is a Jinchuriki. We don't know the full powers of the Kyuubi, let alone any biju. The most we know is that a biju is pure chakra. With the seal that was put on Naruto by the late 4th Hokage, it's possible that the chakra from the Kyuubi twisted itself with his own chakra, thus giving Naruto an affinity for all 5 chakra natures. Itachi stated, thinking more towards himself while speaking aloud, at best, that is what I would be able to conclude to. He looked over towards Yugo before looking at Shisui. That makes me wonder about the training you want to give him, Itachi-kun. I mean, even through the 3 of us, we would not be able to teach him any earth, wind, or lightning ninjutsu. Yugo spoke, worried that them training him might only hinder his growth as a ninja. Unless he tries to learn the jutsu on his own, which could be potentially dangerous if he's not supervised when he attempts it, or unless he studies under other teachers. She looked down at her apple, using a kunai to cut off pieces of it before eating it. As for Kekkei Genkai, he'd have a hard time doing one, let alone multiple kinds. She looked up at Itachi. So, I am rather curious. What are we going to train him in and how long are we going to train him for? She looked back at Naruto, who was still having trouble standing on his legs for a good amount of time. Occasionally he would stand on wobbly legs, which would then give out from under him. Itachi looked at Yugo for a minute, pondering her concerns for a moment before putting them to the back of his mind. We're going to train him in kenjutsu, taijutsu, ninjutsu, fuinjutsu and sensory skills. We'll also spend some dabbling in genjutsu, but I don't think he has a knack for it, so we'll just teach him how to get out of even the most advanced forms of genjutsu. Itachi pulled out a scroll from his pouch, noting it was a scroll of beginner fuinjutsu. Yugo-kun, you will teach him kenjutsu, water-style ninjutsu and sensory skills. Shisui-san, you will teach him fire-style ninjutsu and taijutsu. And I'm going to teach him fuinjutsu and how to break out of genjutsu. He stated, before looking up at his teammates, putting his scroll back. Why him? Shisui asked of Itachi. I see something in him that I haven't seen since the 4th Hokage. Itachi answered, putting a silent halt to any more questions. He finished his rice balls and looked over to Naruto to see if he was faring any better than when he first started. He watched as Naruto slowly began to hold his weight even due to the increased gravity. Itachi smiled inwardly, not letting it show on his face, refusing to let his emotions show. Naruto finally was able to stand under the increased gravity. I think I put too much chakra into the seals. This was a lot harder than I thought it would be. Note to self. Increase the gravity seal slowly. He snickered to himself at his overconfidence. He looked up to see his 3 teachers looking at him, curious at the spiky-haired man and the purple-haired woman. He had no idea who they were. I have a question that's been bugging me, Itachi-sensei. He spoke up as he began to slowly walk towards the group, trying to get used to walking with increased gravity. What is it, Naruto? Itachi spoke as he watched Naruto begin to walk towards him. So he finally has been able to stand. Interesting. Why were you guys watching over me and why didn't you stop the villagers from beating me up? Naruto asked, frowning, starting to think that they only helped him because it was convenient for them. The 3 Anbu looked at one another before Itachi decided to speak up. We were told to only watch after you, to make sure you weren't killed or anything. Not only that, but as members of the village, it's illegal to attack our own villagers even if what they are doing is wrong. Doing such an act could lead to our own execution as an act of treason. I apologize that the villagers did beat you in the alleyway and that we did nothing to stop it, but I do hope you forgive us and understand that our hands were tied with our own lives within the village rules. He looked at Naruto, hoping that he could find it in his heart to forgive the 3 of them. He looked over to Yugo and Shisui, noticing that they both had their heads down, looking at the ground in shame. I forgive you. I forgive everyone who has ever beaten me up too. If I can't forgive them, then how could I ever be Hokage? Only someone who cares about his village and villagers can ever become Hokage, right? He stated with a grin before walking up to Itachi and giving him a hug. Besides, you're my sensei, right? So there will always be a reason for why you do the things you do. I'm just glad to have friends besides Oji-san. Itachi reached down and patted Naruto's back, smiling a small smile as he reminded him of his brother when he hugged him. So when do we get to training Itachi-sensei and who are these other 2? He asked curiously, letting go of Itachi. We start tomorrow. Today we are only doing introductions and learning who is teaching you what and give you a list of directions to follow. Itachi pointed out, looking at Naruto. I will be teaching you fuinjutsu and genjutsu. Though you don't seem to have the knack to perform genjutsu, I will be teaching you how to get out of it, even the more advanced forms of genjutsu. I am Shisui Uchiha of the Uchiha clan. I will be teaching you in fire-style ninjutsu and taijutsu. It will be grueling and hard work, however, you will not be able to use your clones doing taijutsu, so you'll probably have to stay with me when we work on your taijutsu. As for ninjutsu, since you have an affinity for fire, I will be teaching you fire ninjutsu. The spiky-haired shinobi stated, bowing his head to Naruto, before receiving a hug from him as well and a thanks of appreciation before stepping back. My name is Yugo Uzuki. I will be training you kenjutsu, which is the art of sword fighting, water-style ninjutsu, and sensory skills. Yugo spoke, before being cut off by Naruto. What are sensory skills for and why do I need them, Yugo-sensei? Naruto asked, crossing his arms. If you hadn't interrupted me, I would have told you. She replied, getting a slight tick in her forehead before regaining her naturally calm composure. Sensory skills allow you to pick up on enemy ninja, how many there are, and where they are located. If you're particularly skilled at it, you can even tell how dangerous your enemies might be based off chakra levels alone. Without any sensory skills, your days as a shinobi would be quite limited as you would get ambushed and killed quickly. That is why you need them, she stated, smiling at him. Okay, Naruto replied before giving the purple-haired Kunoichi a hug as well, before letting her go. Thank you Itachi-sensei, Shisui-sensei, and Yugo-sensei for taking the time to teach and train me to be a shinobi. I promise to make you proud and I never go back on my word. He gave a thumbs up and a fox grin. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage, was at his desk looking over his never-ending paperwork. Blast this paperwork, it never seems to end. Blast. He thought, wondering how the village council would react if he just burned all the paperwork he had to do to a crisp, only to shake his head. That wouldn't help, it might only ruin things with other nations because who knows what other paperwork I have in here. I wonder how Naruto is doing. I should pay him a visit today, it's been relatively quiet. I hope he isn't giving the Enbu team a hard time. He got out of his chair and walked towards the window, smoking on his pipe as he overlooked the village. Ah, nothing beats a good pipe and a good view, he stated before seeing the two water towers had writing over it. Stupid Oji-san, I'm coming for your hat. He shook his head laughing softly. You've a long way to go before you get my hat, Naruto-kun. A long, long way to go, he stated, before turning around to continue working on the never-ending pile of paperwork. Damn this paperwork. Itachi walked over to the mask that was still on the ground and picked it up, tossing it over to Naruto. Before this day ends, we need to think of a new name for you. Why do I need a new name? I like the name I have, Naruto exclaimed, a bit hurt that his sensei didn't like his name. I like your name too, but you need a new name if you're going to have a new outfit so that the village doesn't know who you are and try to beat you or kill you anymore. With a new identity, you could still be Naruto Uzumaki, but you'll have an alias to go by when you are wearing your mask, which you will always wear when you are not on your own or are training. At some point, you should buy yourself your own mask, something that you would take interest in. Itachi pointed out. Naruto frowned and got a slight pout when he was told that he had to get a new name, although his mind already spinning around different name combinations. Naruto-kun, think of it this way. Each shinobi gets a nickname. For example, the fourth Hokage's nickname was the Yellow Flash. It's what he was widely known as to many shinobi and nations. There is also the first Hokage, who everyone deems as the god of shinobi, or Shisui-kun here, who is known as Shisui the Teleporter. We all have nicknames, you happen to be one of few shinobi who have a few names. It's a privilege to have so many names. Yugo told him, hoping to bring up Naruto's spirits, not wanting him to think that they don't like him. I see. So when can I go back to using my original name? Naruto asked hopeful. When you can learn to defend yourself and you feel comfortable telling people who you really are. Shisui spoke up before Itachi-kid, knowing that Itachi would have probably given him a longer time frame. Okay then. How about Menma Shanjiki? Naruto asked, as he looked at his teachers, grinning slightly at the name. That's actually not bad, Shisui commented, I like it. What do you think Itachi-san, Yugo-kun? They both nodded in affirmation, thinking it was a strong name. Alright then, from this day forward, you will be known as Menma Shanjiki of Konohagakure. In time, you'll probably get a nickname based off your abilities and feats, but that's a long way to come. For now, let's just focus on your training. Naruto grinned as he looked up to his teachers. Hi, was his response. This day just keeps getting better and better. Alright Naruto, we're going to call it a day for now. It is getting late and we have to report back to Hokage-sama, otherwise we'll get in trouble for untimely reports. Itachi stated matter-of-factly as he put on his dog mask. Be sure to keep the lights in your apartment off if you can help it, as the villagers think you're either dead or in a ditch somewhere. If you have to go out, wear the mask and go by the name of Menma. Also, if you just head due south, you'll find your way back to your apartment. Report back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow and don't be late. Itachi stated before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. See you soon Naruto, be prepared for some rough training. Shisui stated before donning his bird mask. And though Itachi didn't state it, start trying to save up money so you can rent a new apartment and your own gear if you can. Shisui disappeared with nothing more than a wisp of smoke. Just be careful Naruto-kun, try not to get caught without your mask on. Yugo said as she put on her cat mask. Oh, and one more thing, if you see us in the village wearing our masks, you are not to speak to us using our names. You must call us by the masks we wear. Anbu aren't to have their names revealed at any point in time. Do you understand? Yugo asked, giving him a firm look behind her mask. I understand Neko-sensei. He responded, grinning. I'll see you tomorrow. She nodded and, like Itachi, disappeared in a swirl of leaves. Hiruzen is sitting in his office waiting for his final Anbu team to report in. Not surprising, it's the team he assigned to watch over Naruto. He looks up from his paperwork to see the final team appearing in their own personal fashions. So, how is he doing? He asked solemnly, knowing that most Anbu teams didn't like looking after him with the exception of this team. That's great news, I'm glad to hear it. Is he at home right now or is he still causing trouble in the village with his pranks? Hiruzen asked, wanting to pay the child a visit. He's currently wandering the village and heading home. The team captain spoke again, not mentioning the newest chain of events or that he might not recognize the child if he went searching for him. Excellent. You are dismissed, head home for the day. Report back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Hiruzen waved his hand, dismissing the Anbu team in front of him before going back to his work. The Anbu left in their own personal fashions, never once surprising the Hokage with how they left. Itachi stood atop the Hokage tower with his teammates. Tori-san, I need you to follow me, there are some things we need to look into regarding our clan. I'll explain more in detail later. I was going to say the same to you Inu-san. You going home Neko-kun? Shisui asked, still wearing his mask. No, I figured I'd watch over the child before heading home. Make sure he got home safely. She replied, looking over the village and looking towards the setting sun. I can't wait to see the moon. It's always a pleasant sight. Alright Neko-kun, see you tomorrow. Spoke their team captain, before both the Uchiha Anbu jumped off the roof of the tower and started running along other rooftops to the Uchiha compound. Yugo watched them run off before jumping onto the nearest roof and started running towards where she sensed Naruto was at. You make it too easy to find you Naruto. Perhaps once you start learning more about chakra control it'll be hard to find you. She mused to herself, as she jumped one more roof spotting Naruto in front of the mask shop. Memna, Naruto's newest alias, walked through the village streets looking in different shops, smiling that the few people who saw him, gave him an acknowledging nod instead of yelling at him and throwing things at him. He put his hands into his pants pockets, keeping his head high. So kid, seems your new teachers have a decent grasp on what to teach you. The demon fox spoke through Naruto's mind, catching the child by surprise. You can talk to me without me being inside my mind? Of course I can talk to you, I am a part of you. Don't write me off as something you don't need to deal with. I will not be ignored by a human as unworthy as yourself. Unworthy huh? Last I checked, you are the one locked inside of me. And last I checked, it was because of me that you haven't died yet brat. Do not mistake my assistance with your healing for kindness. I only heal you because I do not want to die, for if you die, I die until I can manifest enough chakra to take form once again. The Kyuubi spat out, growling at the gall that this child had, to speak to a demon like him, the nine-tailed fox. I swear kid, if it wasn't for this cage, I'd squash you like a bug. The fox thought to itself. And I thank you deeply, though I had no idea it was you who has kept me alive this long until today. But I still thank you. He spoke to the fox before stopping in front of the mask store, noticing all the different animal masks that were there. You should get a black fox mask, it would match your outfit and also iconize me. True, but why would I want to iconize you? I don't even know you. Insolence. How dare you talk back to me? You owe your life to me. Speak to me like that again, and I will not teach you a damn thing. Understand me kid? Roared the demon, giving silent praise to the kid that he is willing to stand up and poke at a tailed beast as powerful as him. I understand Kyuubi, so a black fox mask huh? I don't see them selling anything black, most of the masks are white. So then ask them if they make special masks upon request. Are all humans this stupid? The fox mumbled, wondering how the puny humans ever got anything special that they wanted. "Fine, I'll ask." Kyuubi responded in his atypical manner of ending a conversation. Naruto was about to step inside the shop when he heard a voice behind him say, "What are you looking for, Menma?" He grinned, knowing that only a few people knew his new name. "I'm going to look to see if they have any special masks I could buy or ask how much it would be, as I don't really like the white one with the black outfit I'm wearing," he responded, not turning around, knowing it was Neko-sensei. He kept his hands in his pockets as he walked into the store, half expecting the shop owner to recognize him by his blonde unruly hair that still was visible even with his mask on. After a few minutes of looking around and not getting yelled at, he walked on with a bit more confidence, his sensei still walking behind him quietly. "It's getting pretty late, you two. Is there anything I can help you find in particular?" the shop owner asked, noting the time was almost around 8 p.m. and he needed to get home to his family. "I'm just looking for a black mask with fox whiskers," Naruto answered, looking at the man smiling, though the smile being hidden by his mask. "I'm sorry, son, but we don't have any black fox masks. I could put one in as a special ordered mask. It would cost you a bit more." "When would you want it?" "Whenever you're not too busy. I'm sure you have many special requests." "How long does it take to make a mask?" "Not too long, a day or two at most," spoke the man as he got out a pen and paper, ready to write down details. "What would you want the mask to look like?" Naruto thought for a moment. A completely black mask with 6 orange stripes as whiskers, relatively thin marks. "And could you put on an elastic covering that I can put over my head to cover my hair?" he asked politely as he watched the man writing down notes and prices. "Alright, the total would come to about 10,000 ryo. If you come by in about 2 days, I'll have the mask ready." "Can I get a name?" the shopkeep asked politely. "You know I can't do that." Naruto grinned before putting his hands back in his pockets. "Thank you for your help. I'll see you in a few days," he exclaimed proudly, before walking out giving the man a wave. "You handle yourself well, Menma," spoke the Anbu woman, putting a hand onto his shoulder, giving him a gentle squeeze. "Almost too well for someone of your age and background," she complimented. "Well, I do have a few people to look up to now and need to live up to their standards. I did make them a promise," he spoke in return, walking beside his sensei. "And be sure to continue, you'll make your precious people proud." "Oh, and could I ask you something?" She looked down at him before getting down onto her knees. "Could you stop pulling pranks all over the village? I would appreciate it, as the cleanup for such actions is quite intense." Naruto looked at her and hugged her. "I can try, Neko-sensei, but I can't guarantee anything. But for my senseis, I'll try." He let her go and smiled at her. "I should probably get home and get some sleep. I have a lot to do tomorrow morning," he said before walking off to his apartment. "See you tomorrow, Menma," the Anbu woman said before disappearing in a swirl of leaves and returning to her own place. Naruto woke up the next morning at 8 a.m. and grabbed a bowl of cereal to eat before heading out towards the training grounds. He grabbed his mask and put it on and looked up at the pictures, smiling before opening the door and leaving. He started walking towards the grounds that he was told to meet them at, taking in the quiet time of the early morning. Not too many people are out right now. It's rather nice and quiet. I like it. It's better than the alternative, that's for sure. Naruto kept walking, his hands in his pockets, stopping by a small lake to gaze into the water beneath, slowly losing himself to the calmness of the water. He finally tore himself out of his stupor when he started hearing the village become a little active, so he started walking again. By the time he arrived at the grounds, it was about 9 a.m. and he saw Yugo was already there. Must be off duty since she's not wearing her mask right now. He watched on as she pulled her sword from its sheath on her back and started performing different katas that he had no idea of. He decides to step out of the forest area and into the clearing, taking a seat to watch her. "Good morning, Naruto-kun. I hope you're in for a rough day of training," Yugo spoke as she moved on to the next kata, never breaking form. She had been practicing her kenjutsu for years every day in the morning just to be sure she never lost touch of it. Sure, there hadn't been any real major wars in a while, short of the small battles she had been a part of on the borders, but that didn't give her an excuse to not practice. She stopped her final kata and closed her eyes, reaching out with her chakra. Sensei Itachi and Shisui were almost there. She smiled and sheathed her sword and turned around to Naruto at the same time that Itachi and Shisui landed beside her. "Good morning, Naruto," Itachi stated, showing a slightly invisible smile. We're going to start your training today, as I'm guessing you have finally gotten used to the gravity seals by now. So, I want you to create roughly 140 shadow clones if you can. If you can make more, that's fine too. Naruto looked curiously at Itachi. Why do I need to make so many clones, and how exactly is that going to help with training? He asked. Itachi sighed and closed his eyes for a second before opening them and looking at Naruto. We went over this yesterday, but I'll explain again. The shadow clones are capable of storing memories, so what one clone learns is transferred to you upon them dispersing. In a training sense, each clone is going to do what they think is going to work. So with one clone, what would take 3 days to learn, would take a day and a half. What would take years to learn, could be brought down to mere months of training with the use of shadow clones. As for why you need to make 140 clones is because we're not going to be able to teach you forever, and I would like you to learn as much as we can teach you. We're only on guard duty for you for a month, then a new team will be assigned to watch you. Understand? Naruto nodded and put his hands together in the tiger seal and focused his chakra. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He releases the seal and grins as the large cloud of smoke behind him disappears, revealing 350 clones of Naruto. Not bad, you know? He grins behind his mask, each of his clones also wearing masks. Shisui stared in shock at the sheer numbers of clones Naruto was able to make, looking over at Itachi and Yugo, neither showing shock. Imagine what this kid can accomplish if he has that high of chakra levels already at such a young age. Alright, since he's created 350 clones, each of us will take 30. He stated as he made 2 clones himself, knowing that only 2 were his limit. He looked over to Yugo and Shisui. Shisui, you need to make 1 clone, and Yugo, you need to make 2 clones. They both nodded, creating the clones as requested. Alright, each of us will disperse into our own groups with 30 of your clones, however, the original Naruto will stay with the original me. Naruto gave a thumbs up as his clones started going with their each own respective teacher to learn respective items from his senseis. Why'd I stay with you, Itachi-sensei? I figured it would be best if I went with Shisui-sensei for taijutsu training or Yugo-sensei for sensory training. He spoke as he stayed where he was while looking at Itachi. Because we're going to do some physical training. I want you to do 500 push-ups, 500 sit-ups, 750 squats, and I want you to run around the training ground 20 times. He stated coldly, knowing that the gravity seals were only going to make it harder, but he had the entire day to work on it. He sat down and pulled out a scroll from his pouch and opened it and began writing in it and reading it. The first clone of Itachi walked to one side of the field, staying in the middle to leave room for the other clones of Yugo and Shisui, even though the training ground still had plenty of room to maneuver in. Alright, so, genjutsu is used to alter someone's mind into thinking something is happening when it's not. The easiest way to get out of it is to focus a large amount of chakra inside yourself, then release it as a burst through your entire body. Itachi-sensei, how would we know we're in a genjutsu? One of the clones asked, scratching his head. Good question. Most cases, a genjutsu user is quite skilled at what they are doing, so it will be hard to notice. However, most times, there will be something that happens that would tell you that you're in a genjutsu, either by a change in time, wind, weather, events around you happening, and so on. You just have to be on the lookout for these subtle twists. Now that you know that, let's see how well you get out of a genjutsu. His eyes change over to his 3 Tomo Sharingan and put the clones into a genjutsu without saying anything and began sparring with him and each of the clones. The second clone of Itachi walked to the other side of the middle field, turning to his group of clones and looked around to each of the groups, noting the amazing progress Naruto is making with each of his teachers. Alright, Fuinjutsu is the art of seals. The Uzumaki clan that you come from was well known for their knowledge in Fuinjutsu, so this should come well to you. There are many seals of different kinds, it just depends on how you write them. Inside your pouches are pieces of empty paper. Take them out in the ink bottles and we'll go over the basics of storage sealings and more. One of Yugo's walked over to the river that went through the training ground and looked over to the clones of Naruto, even though she was a clone herself. Alright, water-style ninjutsu is a flowing element. When you make the seals, think of a flowing chakra and then let it out quickly. She made a few hand seals, then raised her hands beside her. Sweden. Mizu Shuriken. Water style. Water shuriken. she stated calmly as water came up to her fingertips and she began throwing them at one of the wooden posts, leaving deep marks and a wet log. Now it's your turn, tiger, rat, and snake seals. This is AC rank jutsu, so it takes little chakra. After that, we'll go over more water jutsu until Itachi-kun calls it a day. The second of Yugo's clones walked over beside the tree line before stopping and looking at her group of 30 clones. Alright, sensory skills are crucial but takes very little chakra unless you're wanting to focus over large ranges. On top of that, you can sense the chakra levels of other ninja and how many there are if you become skilled enough. There are many ways to sense others' chakra, but I only know of my own way, that being I send my chakra out like a web network through the ground. Yugo sat down and waved her hand as an order to make the other clones sit down as well. How do we send out our chakra like that? Seems difficult really, one of the clones stated casually. It is at first, but once you learn how to do it, it's rather quite simple. She stated, for me, I close my eyes and just focus on just letting my chakra flow through me, into the ground, and then out. Just try it and I'm sure you'll get the hang of it in no time flat. The original Yugo walked to the other side of where her clone was teaching Naruto how to use sensory skills. She turned around to look at her clones and rubbed the bridge of her nose, before putting her hands on her hips and looking at the sky. How am I going to teach you kenjutsu unless you have a sword or something usable as a sword, she threw to herself. Remind me to buy you a sword, that way your clones will have one as well. Alright. Well, I'm supposed to teach you kenjutsu, or the art of sword fighting, however, since you don't have swords, use a kunai instead but hold it as you would a sword. She watched as all the clones pulled out a kunai and held it the way they saw her hold hers when she was doing her katas. Alright, we're going to start out with the simplest of katas, being the snake kata. She moved fluidly from one slow slash to the next, each one after that being just as fluid. Alright, now that you have seen how to do it, let's work on it all together. Shisui walked to the opposite side of the field that Yugo was at. Alright, I'm going to teach you fire ninjutsu. We'll start with basic ninjutsu and go up to more advanced ninjutsu. He did a few seals, while stating calmly, Kaden. Gokakyu no jutsu, fire style, great fireball jutsu. When doing fire jutsu, think of the chakra burning in your chest and then just spitting out an inferno of chakra. This fireball jutsu is a C-rank jutsu, so it takes considerable chakra to control. The seals are snake, ram, monkey, boar, horse, tiger. Once you learn this, we'll go over more fire jutsu. He stated, watching on as the Naruto clones began attempting to perform the jutsu he just showed. The clone of Shisui looked at the clones of Naruto and grinned. This should be interesting. Clones against clones. Alright, taijutsu is usually close combat and person to person, so you need to be fast and strong. Now let's get started, he stated as he started charging at the clones, watching them duck and dodge and trying to land hits on him. He wasn't going to hit any of them as he didn't want any of them to disappear. However, he didn't want to go easy on him or himself either, so he began using kunai and shuriken to add into the taijutsu training. Hiruzen gazed out the windows, leaning back in his chair, enjoying seeing the people start to blunder about the village. He was trying to figure out which team or even who were going to watch over Naruto in 3 weeks when Itachi and his team are given new assignments. Maybe Anko could watch over him, or maybe just Yugo. She's always been a soft-hearted girl. He looked over to the calendar, the 11th of October. No wonder there was a lot of commotion yesterday. I should stop by to see Naruto and see how he's doing. Maybe give him some extra money this month for Ichiraku. Hiruzen stood up and walked over and picked up the box that was always filled with Naruto's monthly allotments, which was set up at the time of Minato's and Kushina's deaths, who were vastly wealthy considering their skills and how often they went on missions before Minato became the 4th Hokage. He left the Hokage tower and began walking towards Naruto's apartment, nodding and smiling at the villagers as they greeted him in turn. He arrived at Naruto's apartment a few minutes later and knocked but received no answer. Hiruzen frowned. Naruto always answers his door. Maybe he's at Ichiraku or pulling a prank on someone. He knocked once more before pulling out the spare apartment key and opening the door. Walking in, he didn't see anything different. The room looked the same as it always did, bare, unlively, and unhospitable. There was nothing there, short of the clothes on the floor that would signify someone living there. He put the box of money on the table and took out a piece of paper from his pocket and wrote, "Here's this month's allotment. I hope you have a great day. Hope you had a good birthday, come by sometime to get your present." The third, after leaving the note and money on the table, Hiruzen left the apartment and headed back to the tower, the place he dreaded returning to because of all the paperwork. Naruto lay on the ground, panting, every muscle in his body aching and sweating profusely, so much so that he had to take off his mask and shirt to get cooler faster. He looked over to his left, to see all his clones were still working hard at mastering Kenjutsu, water ninjutsu and sensory skills. Looking over to the right, more clones were working hard at fire ninjutsu and taijutsu, though there were a few that had been dispersed due to some sort of contact, which had caused their gains and thoughts to be transferred to him. While in front of him, he saw his final groups of clones still combating with Itachi's clone and dispelling new genjutsus put on them as they left them and putting together different kinds of seals. He closed his eyes and relaxed, trying to catch his breath and get a rhythm going with his breathing. He was going to be hurting for a while, but he knew that the Kyuubi was probably going to help heal his muscles faster and make them stronger. Itachi looked up at the sky, noting where the sun was at, indicating it was time to call it a day. Whistling loudly to gain everyone's attention, he waved everyone over to join him, which took a few minutes. "Alright, everyone can disperse their clones, including you, Naruto." He made the tiger seal and dispersed his clones as everyone else did the same. Naruto sat up and grinned as he dispersed his clones as all their knowledge, memories, skill learning, and thoughts came flooding into his own mind, while he quickly put it all together. "Wow, you guys really covered a lot today," he grinned, talking to his senseis. "If I keep learning like this, I'll be stronger than the fourth Hokage in no time." He gave a thumbs up and his patented fox-like grin. He grabbed his shirt and put it back on, no longer too hot, and put his mask back on too, which, looking at his mask, reminded him that it would be another day before the shopkeep had his fox mask ready. "So, what time do I show up tomorrow?" he asked enthusiastically. Yugo looked at Naruto before looking at Itachi. "Show up at the same time you did today, and please, start eating healthy foods, whole wheats and grains. Ramen is nice, but don't let it be your meals every day," she stated, smiling at him before putting her cat mask on. Itachi looked at Yugo and nodded in agreement with her. "Neko has a point. Eating ramen all the way will actually stunt your growth as a shinobi, and Konohagakure does not need weak shinobi," he stated, putting on his dog mask, watching Shisui put on his bird mask. "Tori-san, we need to speak to the Hokage privately about some clan matters, get his opinion and directions." Shisui nodded and left with Itachi in a wisp of smoke. "Do they always talk like that to each other?" Naruto asked of Yugo. "Yeah, usually, but they are also each other's best friends. So maybe that makes it okay." She shrugged and smiled. "I'll see you tomorrow, Menma-kun." "Wait, before you go, can you teach me how to disappear like that?" he asked politely, wanting to learn a bit more before turning in for the night. "Sure, it's called Shunshin no Jutsu, Body Flicker Jutsu. It's a D-rank skill that utilizes a burst of chakra through the body to move really fast, though you need a distraction if you're using it in battle, such as smoke, leaves, or something along those lines. And you use the ram seal. Try it sometime, it definitely helps when you're needing to travel somewhere and are running late. Oh, and the amount of chakra you use is dependent on how far you need to travel, so it's not always practical to use." She grins at him and shunshin's off, a group of leaves left in her wake. A burst of chakra through the body to move quickly. He puts his hands together to form the tiger seal and creates 20 clones, each of them with the intention to learn the Shunshin no Jutsu, each of them trying to get to the log across the clearing. After about an hour of training, one of his clones finally succeeded in it, which made Naruto grin. He dispersed his clones and sorted through the newfound knowledge. Hee, now I can prank even more people and get away easily. He Shunshin-ed back to his apartment and opened the door, seeing a box and a note on the table. He opened the box and smiled, seeing the monthly allotment that he always got, and put the money into his frog pouch, which was soon to become a storage seal. He picked up the note and smiled at the Hokage's writing. Sure, he wasn't all that fond of his birthday, but he was glad that someone had remembered it and that they were giving him a gift. He decided he would take a shower before showing up at the Hokage Tower. The Anbu team assigned to Naruto showed up in front of him. "Report," he spoke to the team captain. Naruto is doing fine and well. No one tried to beat him today. The smooth black-haired dog Anbu spoke. Excellent, you may leave. He spoke as he waved his hands off. Hokage-sama, there is something that Tori-san and myself wish to speak to you about. It's about the Uchiha clan. Itachi spoke, looking over at the masked Yugo as she took her leave. Hiruzen put up a few privacy seals that the Hokage room was usually filled with before looking at his team. Proceed. Naruto put on a new pair of clothes, tossing the dirty pair into the small washer of his apartment, waiting until he had a few more pairs of clothes to start it. He picked up his mask and put it on before leaving his apartment. After locking his door, he shunshin-ed to the Hokage tower and knocked on the door, putting his mask into his pouch. He waited for a verbal command to enter. Hey Oji-san, your note said you wanted to see me? He smiled as he walked in the door, closing it behind him. Naruto-kun, my boy, he smiled as he got out of his desk, giving the small 4-foot blonde a hug. I see you've changed your outfit. You're beginning to look like a shinobi. So tell me, how was your birthday? Naruto shrugged, it was okay. I got beat up in an alleyway after eating some ramen that a Yame-chan had made special for me. Other than that, it was fairly quiet and lonely. He spoke, his voice soft and sad as he looked to the ground. Well, I'm sorry about that, please don't hate the villagers. They don't mean it, I'm sure most of them are just misguided. I know why they do it. Why they treat me so different, he said solemnly. You do? He asked, hoping Naruto didn't really know. Naruto nodded. I am the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. I found out when the villagers beat me in the alleyway on my birthday. The Kyuubi helped heal my wounds. He kicked at a small splinter that was on the floor. It's okay though, I still forgive the villagers. They are still my comrades, even if they beat me every other week. Why do you forgive them if they always treat you so badly? He asked, confused at Naruto's answers and thought patterns. Well, if I can't forgive them, how will they ever acknowledge me when I become Hokage? How would they ever accept me as Hokage? He spoke, looking up and giving a small smile. He's wise beyond his years and has a huge heart. That's very noble of you, Naruto-kun. Very noble, indeed. He walked over to his desk and opened one of the drawers, taking it out. I wanted to give you this. It's a scroll, left by the late 4th Hokage. He asked me to hand it to you on your 8th birthday. I'm not entirely sure what's in it, but it need your blood to open it. I'd suggest reading it when you're alone. He opened up a second drawer and picked up a paper envelope and handing it to Naruto. I also wanted to give you this. Go on, open it. Naruto opened the envelope to find a small card in there, on it written, Acceptance to Konoha Academy. He got wide eyes and smiled big. Thank you Oji-san, I'm gonna be a real shinobi. I can't believe it. He hugged Hiruzen and let him go, staring at the acceptance card. That took some twisting to get Naruto-kun, but I got it for you. You can enroll when you're 10, give you some time to learn about some basic stuff about the shinobi world. Don't let me down, Naruto-kun. If you keep the path you're on now and the attitude you have now, your comrades and village will always be behind you. He spoke wisely, giving Naruto even more hope of becoming Hokage. You'll make a fine Hokage. Naruto smiled and hugged the Hokage one last time before heading to the door. Thank you so much Oji-san. I'll never forget this. He left the Hokage tower, putting his mask on before exiting into the streets of Konohagakure, still excited at what Oji-san was able to do. He shunshin-ed off to his apartment, not caring who saw him as he walked in the door and locking it. He put the card and the scroll onto the table and made himself some ramen dinner, noting to buy some groceries later to cook full healthy meals as his senseis instructed him to do. He looked over to the scroll left by the 4th Hokage and wondered what it was. I'll read it later. I need to get some rest for my training tomorrow, then once Itachi-sensei is no longer able to teach me, then I'll read it. He threw away the ramen cup and headed to bed, pushing just a bit more chakra into the gravity seals to make himself stronger. Naruto had just woken up and sat up. He was going to try to learn more jutsus and sealings today. He had gotten a new apartment, what with saving up money from his allotments and having a new name, he was able to live in a nicer area, one that usually had the upper-class families in it, but more specifically the Uchiha and Hyuga clans. Their compounds were not too far from each other's and there was quite a bit of land in between the two, which he had thought about building his own compound with the mission money he would get and possible bounties from dead ninja. He got out of bed and put on his black pants and walked into the living room, looking at the many books and scrolls scattered about the floor, opened to various pages about various subjects ranging from Konohagakure history to high-level jutsus. Looking over the books and scrolls made him think back to how he had obtained the many books and scrolls. Flashback. It had been 2 months since Itachi and his team had been reassigned to new tasks, and Naruto sat on the top of a lamppost, looking at the library of the Leaf. Inside that building housed many scrolls and books on many various subjects he wanted and needed to learn if he was ever going to become Hokage. He expanded his chakra network and felt the presence of 3 shinobi in the library and 1 abbot away from him, which he noted was probably the person assigned to watch him. Under his black fox mask, he had his fox-like grin, knowing he'll get away from his pursuer once he got the books he needed. Alright Kyuubi, what books and scrolls will I need for your training regiment? Everything on elemental jutsus and sub-elemental jutsus, herbs and healing, and the history of Konohagakure. Of the history though, you need to focus on Uzushiogakure. Why Uzushiogakure? I've never even heard of the place. Naruto scratched at his mask, where his cheek and whiskers are, in thought. Did Uzushiogakure start something? Uzushiogakure was known far and wide for their fuinjutsu. After you get the books, head back to your apartment and you will begin studying every book and memorizing everything in it. As for the jutsus, we'll go to the Forest of Death to practice them. The Kyuubi behind the gates and dragged his claws over the wooden bars, leaving marks in them from boredom. This kid needs to get strong and fast if he's ever going to call himself a shinobi and be my container. How many books should I get at one time? The Kyuubi grinned evilly, as many as you can carry, runt. Now, leave me alone until you need me again. I'm tired and must rest. Tired? Right, because you do anything but sleep. Naruto commented towards the fox, hoping to get a rise out of his lifelong friend. How dare you? I am the one who has been able to help you with the overly intense training that those Uchiha demons had you do. Without me, you would have been thoroughly exhausted and your muscles would have been constantly sore and tired. Watch the way you speak to me next time, you pathetic runt of a human, or the first time I get out of this cage, I'll eat you myself. The Kyuubi roared at his container, growling at him. Yeah, that's if I let you out of this cage. The only response Naruto got was a growl from his pet fox. He rolled his eyes and Shunshin Ed into the library, noting the many rows of books and scrolls, taking in the fact that they were sectioned off into their own respective categories. Naruto walked to the history section and began putting books into the storage seals he always kept on him. He looked around to make sure no one was watching him before putting away the sealed books into his right-hand pouch and made his way to the herbs and healing. Once at the herbs and healing section, he did the same thing as in the history section, loading his seals with books and putting those seals into the right side pouch. He stood up and checked to see if he had any more seals. 2 more seals, probably good enough for what I need. He looked around for the elemental section, noticing it was in a section with a grand archway into it. Wow, so many books. He didn't really need the use of clones as the elements were also separated into their own areas. He went down each row, grabbing every book he could find that would have more information on jutsus as well as advanced techniques, putting the books into his final 2 scrolls before putting them away. He grinned at his success and Shunshin Ed back to the entrance and walked off, his hands behind his head, scratching at the black mesh that covered his blonde spiky hair. You should return those books, Menma-kun, spoke up a purple-haired cat Anbu. Naruto grinned. What books are you talking about, Neko-chan? I only went inside to take a look around, attempting to remain as innocent as possible. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small gift in a box. It's actually a good thing you're here. I wanted to give this to you. He smiled at her. It's to thank you for everything you've done for me. Oh come on, I'm sure the library has many copies of the books I borrowed. I'm going to return the books as soon as I'm done with them. Promise, he exclaimed, trying to get his watcher to let him go quietly, which so far doesn't seem to be the case. Regardless, you still need to return them, she responded, stepping towards Naruto. HMPH, fine, but if you want me to return them, I hope you catch me. Naruto grinned and laughed as he made 5 shadow clones, all of them saying in turn, so which one is the real me? They all laughed and jumped onto separate rooftops, looking down at Yugo, each one giving her a thumbs up. We're going to do this again, really? She exclaimed back in exasperation. Every time they played this game, she always got covered in paint on the few occasions that she was able to get the right Naruto. Fine, but no paint or traps. I can't guarantee that. I do have a reputation to keep up as the prankster of Konohagakure. One of the Narutos stated, grinning at her. How about this, if I get you again, I'll buy you dinner tonight at Ichiraku when you get off duty. He asked her, giving her a proposition to fail purposely. That sounds great, however that means I'd get paint all over me again and would consequently need to wash my hair multiple times before I go out. She looked at the Naruto that spoke first, claiming to be a prankster. Got ya, brat. She jumped at the second of the 5 Naruto clones, taking out her wire and trapping him in it. Oh no, you got me. Naruto grinned evilly, or did you? He makes a hand sign and whispers, boom, and explodes into a shower of purple and orange paint, effectively covering Yugo with splatters of it. 1 down, 4 to go, Neko-sensei. He grinned as all 4 of them jumped off the roofs and went different ways. Yugo groaned and wiped off her mask. Shaking her head, she took after another one of the Narutos, hoping she doesn't get splattered with paint again, as she was getting tired of constantly washing her hair. Though on the bright side, her hair has never been softer and smoother, to which she did thank Naruto. Flashback end. Naruto felt bad about covering her with paint all the time, but he needed this knowledge so he could perform new jutsus. He created 10 clones, leaving each of them to study more of the books, as there were still plenty more that have not been read yet. He got his shirt and mask on and looked at his nightstand. On the nightstand was the letter left for him from the 4th Hokage, which still had yet to be read. I should probably read that at some point, maybe today. I'll have my clones do training and I'll read that. He nodded to himself and left the apartment, shunshin-ing off to the training grounds that he used when his teachers were training him. Taji Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. All in a poof of smoke to cover half the field, with 600 Naruto clones. Naruto then divided his clones into 30 groups of 20 clones, working on various jutsus and skills, and also working to create sub-elemental jutsus, which he was going to try to find more information on later. He shunshin-ed away and back to the apartment and went to his bedroom. He looked over to the scroll before walking over and grabbing it, going to his bed and sitting down. It looked like a normal scroll with his name on the front of it. Hey, Kyuubi, what do you know of the 4th Hokage? Naruto asked of his tenant, knowing that he was defeated by the 4th Hokage from the history books that his clones have read. That guy. He growls, why should I tell you anything about him? Because I asked you, fluffy ball of fur. Why are you always so difficult to talk to? Because you humans deserve no help from us tailed beasts. All of you are the same. The Kyuubi countered, his head still resting on his paws inside his cage in Naruto's mind. That doesn't mean you can't answer a simple question. Fine, but if I do, you have to do something for me. What do you want, Kyuubi? Naruto asked, getting more irritated that he was having this argument with his tenant. Change the scenery in your mind for me so I have room to move around for starters. The Kyuubi grinned, his claws scraping the watered floor. In order for me to do that, I'd have to alter the seal that you're contained in. Exactly. I don't know enough about the seal that's used to contain you to alter it enough to keep you contained. That's why I told you to learn about Uzu-Shiogakure, you damned brat. He growled at his jailer, his claws clicking over the floor. How about, when I do learn how to alter the seal, I change it then? Afraid you wouldn't be able to control me otherwise? Is it because you're too weak to fight me? I'm only 8.5. Give me a chance, furball. Until you think you can defeat me, don't request information from me unless it benefits you getting stronger. The Kyuubi growled at his jailer. Fine. One of these days though, you're not going to hate humans as much as you do. That's what they all say, but none of them do anything different. Well, I will. I promise. Believe it. HMPH. Naruto shook his head before looking at the scroll again, untying it and rolling the beginning part of it open. Dear Naruto, if you're reading this scroll, it means that I'm dead and that the 3rd Hokage has deemed you mature enough to know this information. First off, let me tell you who I am. My name is Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, otherwise known as Konoha's Yellow Flash. I am also your father. I ask that you not tell anyone this information, as there are still many enemies around that did not particularly like me, and as consequence, would probably seek to end your life if they knew you are my legacy to our village. I hope you aren't too mad at me for sealing the 9-tailed fox inside you. Your mother had just given birth to you and we were attacked by a masked man that pulled the biju out of her. Yes, your mother was a Jinchuriki too. I regret not being able to stop the rampage of the biju and was forced to seal him inside you before he destroyed the village even more. I used the Hukka no Fuin Shiki, 8 trigram sealing style, to seal him, in the hopes that one day you could use the biju's power for your own. I hope that your life hasn't been all that terrible, and as I watch you from the heavens, know that your mother and I loved you deeply. If your life has been bad, please don't give up. Your mother would always tell me, if you give up, everyone else will give up on you. The life of a shinobi is a hard one. The trials you will go through will make you a strong shinobi. Always keep in mind, you are a shinobi of the leaf, the son of the 4th Hokage, and an extraordinary person. I have high hopes you will do the shinobi world some real good. That being said, to hopefully recount for making you the Jinchuriki, speak to Jiraiya-sama about the key to the seal. Also, if you wipe your blood over this seal at the end of this scroll, you will get another scroll. Take this scroll to the Hokage and show it to them. They will know what to do from there. Again, I hope you aren't too mad at me for sealing the fox inside you, and I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me. I love you, Naruto. Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage. P.S. Ask the Hokage about the Namikaze compound and getting the land deed to it. It is a large bit of land that you can use as you see fit, though you might need to use some of your mission earnings to build onto it. Naruto finished reading the scroll and leaned back against the wall, taking in all that he read. He had a father, albeit he was dead, but he had a father, and it was none other than the 4th Hokage. He began silently crying at the newest findings that he had just read about. He cried for at least a half hour before gathering his composure once more, wiping away his tears. That would explain the similarities with our hair color, he stated, looking up at his ceiling and staring at a picture of the 4th Hokage in his white cape, who was giving a thumbs up and a grin. I wonder what kind of man you were, Otto-san. A good, kind one, I hope. And who the hell is Jiraiya? I've never heard of such a man in my life. He looked back towards the scroll and unrolled it a bit more to see an altered form of the storage seal. Biting his thumb, his wiped his blood over the seal, his blood being drawn into the seal and another scroll coming out. Might as well go see the Hokage about this. Naruto left his apartment a few hours later, deciding to personally read some history on the 4th Hokage and the night that the Kyuubi attacked, gleaming no extra information than what he already knew. He was walking towards the Hokage Tower, greeting random passers-by and store vendors as he passed. As a masked character, they showed him great hospitality, though as Naruto, they showed him none. It was saddening to him that he couldn't be his true self in his own village, which caused him great inner turmoil, sometimes bringing him to thoughts of leaving the village. If I left the village, no one would miss me except maybe a few people. Though, then I wouldn't be able to become Hokage and show the villagers who I really am. Of course, if I left, I could easily get more powerful than any shinobi from the leaf ever has and then come back. Probably something I'll think more about later. I wonder what Yugo-chan would think if I left. I wonder what she's doing anyway. He reached the tower and knocked on the Hokage's door, entering it shortly after knocking. And to whom do I have the satisfaction of meeting? The Hokage asked, not having known of a child with a fox mask. Really? You know who I am. I received this scroll from a storage seal in a scroll I was given by you. Naruto reached into his pack and grabbed the scroll that had the kanji for Hokage on it, handing it over to his grandfather figure. The scroll said you'd know what to do with it. Hiruzen grabbed the scroll and looked at it, opening the scroll and reading the contents of it. Wait here a minute. He walked over to the space between his two bookcases and made some hand signs, placing his palm on the wall opening up to reveal a set of stairs. The Hokage's hidden room. Seems all the rumors I have read about were right. Interesting. I wonder what secrets lie down there. Do not enter this passageway, it is forbidden from anyone who is not a Hokage. All the more reason to become one, I suppose. Naruto grinned, snickering to himself. Hiruzen shook his head before walking down the stairs. 30 minutes later, he came back, carrying a small pack of books and scrolls. This is everything the Yondaime left to you, Naruto. I'm not sure all what you read about, but your father loved you very much. I know, Oji-san, his scroll said as much. Naruto looked down and sighed softly before looking back up. I was told to ask about the Namikaze land deed. What happened to it? Ah, The land deed to the largest compound in Konohagakure. Many people have been trying to buy that land as it is great for many things and indeed quite large. He walked over to his desk and opened the center drawer, rummaging through it before grabbing a folder and handing it to Naruto. The Namikaze compound is not too far from here actually and is situated by the western wall, and it's about 5 hectares of land. To put it in perspective, a training ground is usually only 1 hectare of land. Naruto whistled lightly. That is a lot of land. The Namikaze compound is third in size compared to the Uchiha and Hyuga compounds. Here is instated, bringing out a map to show the sizes of the 3 compounds. Why's the land so large if there's no one remaining in the Namikaze line except me? Naruto asked, looking at the map, noticing how the 3 compounds resembled the 3 points of a triangle. Curious, probably nothing to it though. I can only venture to guess that Minato-san was attempting to bring his clan or the Uzumaki clan together when he bought the land, but never actually got around to it. Instead, I know he used it as his own personal training grounds and taught his own students there instead of the traditional training grounds. Was there anything else you wanted, Naruto-kun? He asked of the child standing in front of him. Yeah, could you not tell anyone that I'm still alive? As far as the villagers know, I'm dead right now. I have already come up with an alias, Menma Shanjiki, and would like to be known as that from now on. When I feel comfortable revealing my true identity, I'll do it then. Hiruzen nodded, as you wish. Menma-kun, already thinking like a shinobi. Whoever his teachers were, they taught him well. Naruto smiled and nodded, thank you Oji-san. He shunshin Ed away from the tower and went back to his apartment to look through the books and scrolls Oji-san had just given him. He walked inside and noticed that it was getting pretty late, around 5 p.m. He walked over to the couch and released his clones for the day, getting a slight headache from the massive wealth of new information he was learning through his clones, taking the next 2 hours to meditate and analyze it all. After eating some dinner and changing, he headed to bed, deciding that he would take the day off tomorrow to study the scrolls and books left by his father. Naruto woke up the next morning, no longer having a headache, and made himself some oatmeal breakfast, eating it in his room as he started sifting through the books and scrolls. He found one that was titled, the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Remembering that it was that technique that made the 4th Hokage such a dangerous competitor and what got him the nickname Konoha's Yellow Flash. Naruto opened the book and began reading it, noticing that most of the book was just notes and seals and formulas, each of which referring to getting the way the seal and technique would work together. He flipped through the pages, reading the notes and formulas, slowly piecing together why it took so many variations to make it work. He had read half the book and came to realize that his father wanted him to recreate this jutsu and utilize it for the good of the village. He took a kunai and copied the seal that his father had made onto the hilt of it, looking back at the notes again. Focus your chakra into the seal and throw the kunai, and recall a small bit of the chakra to yourself. Naruto walked into the hallway and threw the kunai at and into the wall in the living room, drawing a small portion of the chakra from the kunai, quickly being teleported to the kunai. As he wasn't expecting to move so fast, he smashed his face into the wall, successfully breaking his nose and causing a nosebleed. Damn it, I guess I need to learn how to use this while fighting without causing myself harm. He took the kunai out of the wall after having fixed and healed his broken nose, walking back towards his bedroom. He continued reading the book, finding out a new piece of information. Utilized chakra blades to allow chakra to be held more effectively. Now where do I get chakra blades? He kept reading until he had finished the book and closed it, putting it on top of his nightstand, mentally telling himself to study the book closer upon a later time. He started sifting through more books and scrolls, noting there were many scrolls about advanced Fuinjutsu, books about Uzushiogakure, books and scrolls about the Uzumaki clan, and many scrolls and books about the second Hokage and his use of the Hiraishin no Jutsu. He made a few clones and decided to go for a walk to check out the Namikaze compound he had just inherited. Grabbing his mask and putting it on, Naruto left his apartment and headed towards the Namikaze compound, keeping his senses spread in case any shinobi were following him, but ever since he changed apartments, no Anbu teams were assigned to watch over him. So, the 4th Hokage decided to give you his original jutsu, Brett. Morning to you too, Kidama-sama. Yeah, what of it? Call me that again and I'll make your life a living hell. You mean, you haven't already? Naruto replied, grinning as he spoke to his friend. The Kyuubi growled, not knowing exactly what to say. I can make it more of a living hell than you've experienced so far, and believe me, it can be made worse. You haven't even begun to feel a portion of my power and hatred. No, but surely that hatred can't be good for you, Kidama-sama, and there has to be some way to get rid of it. I'm not sure how, but I'll figure it out. That's what friends do, right? The Kyuubi was silent, unsure how to respond to the kid's response about being friends and taking away his hatred. So what did you want? Be sure not to overuse that jutsu the fourth Hokage has given you. If you do, you'll be killed quickly because you'll be in the bingo book. Doesn't matter if I'm put in the bingo book or not, I'm not going to die until after I make Hokage and live a long prosperous life. Don't let Kami hear you say that, or she'll do her best to make sure you find out otherwise. The Kyuubi growled out softly before going back to his own business. Naruto shrugged his shoulders and laughed to himself as he turned the final corner to the compound and stood in front of a large roadway, leading to a large magnificent building. The building itself looked like a very large, very rundown dojo. It had 4 red pillars in the front holding up a white roof, all of the pillars cracking with wear and the tiles falling off or missing. The windows were closed on the outside and had a lock on them in the middle, the locks obviously rusting away due to the lack of attention, while the wooden panels that covered the windows were falling away slowly. In the middle of the building was a set of double doors with a swirling circle painted in the middle. The symbol paint was fading and the doors were starting to fall off the hinges. All in all, the building would have looked magnificent in its prime and if it wasn't so run down. Naruto walked down the roadway, noticing the bountiful piles of unkempt leaves that littered the ground along with the many layers of weeds. He walked around the left side of the building, noticing more decaying window covers, more weeds and more piles of leaves. How long has this place gone without the single touch of a villager? He kicked through the piles of leaves as he came upon a wooden fence and pushed open the gate, causing the gate to practically fall off. He looked around what he assumed was the backyard. Weeds as tall as him blanketed the area. To him, it looked like a jungle, minus the trees. Looking over towards the building again, he noticed many vines climbing the walls and through the windows and whatever other crack and crevice they could grow through. He sighed sadly and jumped up onto the roof of the building, flowing chakra to his feet so as not to fall off as tiles became loose and fell to the ground below. He noticed that the fenced-in area had 3 other doors, leading to 3 different training grounds, though one wouldn't be able to tell they were training grounds as they were covered in weeds, fallen trees, and random sprouting trees. He sat down and started thinking about everything that he was going to have to do to pull weeds, cut grass, uproot trees, lift trees, chop wood, replace windows. Just thinking about the work gave him a slight headache. Great, looks like I have a lot of work ahead of me to fix up this place. Naruto, wearing his kitsune mask, showed up to the academy and noticed there were plenty of other hopeful ninja there and noticed a board in the front of the school, which is where everyone was crowding around. He decided to sit back and wait for everyone to clear, noticing a spiky raven-haired boy doing the same thing. Naruto looked at the boy, taking in the fact that he was about 4 feet tall, an Uchiha judging by the red and white fan on his back and the blue clothes he wore. He also noticed the black eyes, trademarks of the Sharingan holders, just as white eyes were trademarks of the Hyuga clan. Annoying group of people, isn't it, Uchiha-san? Naruto asked, turning his eyes back towards the group, watching it decrease slowly. By the way, I'm Menma. How do you know I'm an Uchiha? The raven-haired Uchiha asked. Easy, the fan on your shirt and your black eyes. Both are trademarks of the famed Uchiha clan of the Sharingan. He responded casually. The boy raised an eyebrow at him. Baka, who does he think he is? He's not an Uchiha, so why does he know about us? I'm Sasuke Uchiha, son of Fugaku Uchiha, who is the head of our clan. How do you know so much about my clan? I read it in books. Madara was written about a lot and he was described to have the same features as most of the Uchiha around the village. We try not to talk about Madara, he's a blemish on the great Uchiha name. Sasuke states, pushing himself off the tree he was leaning on, though I give you this warning, if you are in my class, stay out of my way. I have to impress my clan and can't have anyone be better than me, got it, Baka? Got it. You have an ego issue, seems to run in the clan. Naruto responded, grinning lightly. Baka. Sasuke got a tick mark on his forehead before turning around punching Naruto with a right hook, causing the boy to fall to the ground. Don't talk about my clan like that. Sasuke turned around and walked to the board, which was now somewhat visible due to the shrinking crowd. Nice hit. Looks like I've got myself a rival. Naruto stood up and rubbed his cheek lightly, though because of the mask, he couldn't really touch it. Thankfully he had started pouring chakra into his mask or it might have cracked under the force of the hit. He walked up to the board and looked for his name. Menma Shanjiki. Moving his finger upwards, classroom 103. He noticed Sasuke's name as he went towards the top. Snickering to himself, he thought, oh, this should be fun. He walked into the academy and went to classroom 103, noticing there were only 9 shinobi to be in the room. Noticing what he sensed was a Chunin-level shinobi who had a large scar of the bridge of his nose. He looked for a seat and noticed that the only one available was next to Sasuke. Hi again, Uchiha-san. Baka. Sasuke retorted, without looking towards him. Alright class, today starts your 2-year training to become a shinobi, learns the rules of shinobi, and the ways of shinobi. Granted, the best way to learn is through experience and missions, but you won't be doing that until you have graduated from the academy. My name is Iruka Amino, I will be your teacher for the next 2 years as well. When you speak to me, you will address me as Iruka-sensei, understood? Yes, Iruka-sensei, the entire class says in unison. Alright, let's get started over the basics of being a shinobi. Chakra. Hiruzen sat at the head of the semicircular table. On the left side, sat the civilian council to include his advisors. As much as he disliked them, Homura Mitokado and Kaharu Utatane. On the right side, sat the shinobi council which consisted of the heads of the clans that lived in Konoha and Danzo, who was the overseer of the Anbu operations. Where is Naruto Uzumaki? He hasn't done a prank or been seen in days. Homura asked, irritated that no one could find him. Even the apartment he lived in was empty and bare of any belongings, despite the council's harsh, strict and unanimous agreement to keep the demon boy confined to one area. Naruto Uzumaki is in safe hands, I assure you. Hiruzen stated, puffing on his pipe. We agreed that Naruto was not to be moved from that apartment without our notification. She screamed at the third Hokage. Where is he? She demanded. I didn't move him, nor do you need to know where he is. As I stated, he is in safe hands, probably the safest we've ever seen. Hiruzen responded in turn, knowing that today was Naruto's first day at the academy. Homura placed her head into her hands and rubbed her temples lightly, starting to feel the oncomings of a headache, realizing that Hiruzen wasn't going to tell her or anyone where the demon child was being kept. He had been missing for 2 years, though they still saw new pranks and paintings every day. No one had actually seen him. Alright, onto the next order of. Hiruzen was interrupted by 2 Anbu members appearing before him in a wisp of smoke. I hope it's important for you to interrupt a council meeting Anbu. The Tori and Inu Anbu bow before the Hokage, the Inu Anbu speaking up taking notice of the entire shinobi and civilian council. Yes Hokage-sama, it is quite important. However, I would like to speak to you in private about it, without the council present. Danzo spoke up at this time, I request to be present when this information is reported. I am the overseers of the Anbu operations, there might be something I need to assign to a team. Hiruzen looked over to his previous teammate, request granted. Everyone else, leave. The council stood up grumbling their disapproval at being kicked out from overhearing the newfound information. He focused his chakra through the room and privacy seals showed up, covering the walls. Speak. Hokage-sama, we have reason to believe that the Uchiha clan is planning a coup d'état to usurp the mantle from you and proclaim Konohagakure and the Land of Fire in the Uchiha name. Inu spoke, keeping his head bowed. These are some very serious accusations, Inu-san. Please remove your mask so I can see who speaks such. Inu and Tori both removed their masks, revealing themselves to be Itachi and Shisui Uchiha of the Uchiha clan. Danzo spoke up, quite surprising that 2 Uchiha members would betray their own clan. It is. Do you have any proof of the accused and who will be leading the supposed coup d'état? Hiruzen asked, concerned for his village's safety more than his life. We do. Shisui spoke, pulling out a scroll with a seal on it for recording voices. He poured chakra through it and the seal began to relay the voices recorded, speaking of a coup d'état and when it would happen. Who is the one explaining the plan? Hiruzen asked. That would be my father, Fugaku Uchiha, clan head of the Uchihas. Itachi spoke. I think it's best if we bring Fugaku-sama in for questioning and arrest. I don't believe so. I believe it's best if the Uchiha clan was eradicated completely to prevent any further uprisings. Danzo spoke, his emotions speaking nothing but ill contempt of the Uchiha name. If we don't act now and this gets out to any other clan, this poison will spread throughout the village like a wildfire that cannot be contained. This is quite troubling. Though I agree with you, Danzo-san, I think there is a more peaceful solution to this than you are willing to accept. Itachi-san, Shisui-san, what is your take on this and your solution? The third Hokage spoke, still puffing on his pipe as he went over the relayed recording in his mind. Shisui spoke up first. I agree with you, Hokage-sama, that there is a more peaceful solution. However, I do not feel comfortable killing an entire clan all because of one event to prove a point to others. I have to agree with Itachi-san though that I think Fugaku should be brought in. Itachi looked over to Danzo, trying to read him to see if he had a hidden agenda as he began to spoke. I'm fairly positive that if we bring Fugaku-san in and question him as well as begin peaceful negotiations with the Uchiha clan, that the coup will no longer happen and the Uchiha won't even think about it again. Considering that it's Fugaku-san who brought up the idea of the coup, the idea will also fade with him in custody. Itachi noticed the almost absent frown and worry in Danzo's mouth and eyes, keeping a mental note about it, listening to the Hokage hum with his options. Hokage-sama, if we negotiate with the Uchiha, then that would show the other clans we are willing to negotiate with them, and it would only continue until we had a civil war in our midst. Danzo was cut off before he could finish. I understand, Danzo, but if we authorize the genocide of an entire clan, that is already a civil war, if not the start of it. Hiruzen stated, looking at Danzo, wondering what his motives were to have an entire clan annihilated. As such, Itachi-san, Shisui-san, I authorize you, Shisui, Neko, and Snake to take Fugaku into custody under charges of treason, premeditated murder, and conspiracy against the Land of Fire. He noticed the two Anbu team members putting their masks back on. I want him brought to torture and interrogation, immediately. This is an S-rank assignment. Speak of this to anyone else besides the authorized members and you'll find yourself with Fugaku in torture and interrogation. Go. Hiruzen waved his hand as his two Anbu disappeared, to complete their assignment. I believe you're making a big mistake, Hokage-sama. Danzo stated as he stood up and bowed, before taking his leave. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair and puffed on his pipe. I hope you're having a better day than me, Naruto-kun. Yugo had just stepped out of the shower and walked over to the full-length mirror, wrapping the towel around her body. Today was her day off and she was going to make the most of it, or what she could at least. Of course, being an Anbu member also meant that your day off could be renounced at a moment's notice for any real reason. She grabbed a brush off of her vanity table and walked up to the mirror, brushing her hair, looking at the silver necklace with the amethyst moon that Naruto had given her. She smiled softly as a small blush took to her cheeks. Does he really see me like that? She asked herself as she looked at herself in the mirror. Every shinobi knew the meaning behind silver jewelry, at least most shinobi did. Though it wasn't taught in the academy, it was learned through the family that dated back to the first Hokage, who gave his wife a silver rune-encrusted ring. Should a shinobi give another a piece of silver jewelry, they are offering themselves to the other and binding their life to that person. In order to accept such an offer, the gifted shinobi must also present a piece of silver jewelry of equal or greater value to the gifter shinobi. She recited in her head. She had no idea how much the necklace had cost or if she wanted to be bound to Naruto. After all, he was 6 years younger than her. He probably didn't even know of the rule, let alone meant anything by it. She frowned at the thought of Naruto being with someone else. After all, if it wasn't for Naruto, she'd probably have left the village by now. Flashback. Yugo was sitting inside the Ichiraku ramen store, eating a bowl of miso ramen, thinking about the breakup she just went through. She'd been with Hayate Gecko for about 3 years and she decided to give him a silver ring, smiling as she handed it to him, though he frowned and handed it back, saying he couldn't accept the offer of the silver jewelry. She frowned and held back her tears as she poked at her soup, having only eaten half of it. Maybe I should leave the village, get away from here, and him. She thought to herself, trying to get Hayate's face out of her head. What did I do wrong? Am I not attractive enough? Am I not strong enough? Am I not enough for him? What is it? She didn't notice that someone else had walked into the store and sat down, ordering 2 bowls of miso ramen. "Are you okay, Yugo-sensei?" spoke an all-too-familiar voice to her, which snapped her out of her own thoughts, quickly wiping away a few tears that had escaped. "Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking, Memna," she lied, doing her best to sell a fake smile to him. "You're a liar. I can tell you are," Naruto said as he received his 2 bowls of ramen. "Ramen time." "Yeah." He started slurping a few noodles before looking to Yugo again. "You know, whatever has made you upset. I hope it's nothing too serious as I don't like seeing you upset." She had almost forgotten that Naruto had become an extremely talented sensory ninja after she had taught him, not only to learn more after reading the books he stole from the library. Yugo smiled softly. "It really is nothing, just an old relationship of mine was just ended because he didn't want me," she replied honestly as she looked at her student. Sure, he was only going on 10, but he still was moderately attractive, especially his whiskers, though she couldn't see them as he had his mask on. "I see. Well, in my opinion, if he doesn't want you, then you're better off without him anyway," he stated between bites of noodles and meats. "How do you figure Menma-kun?" she asked, turning towards him, leaning an elbow on the table, wanting to hear his explanation. "Well, because if he didn't want you, then that means you're now free to find someone else. You're no longer wasting your time on a lost cause that wasn't going to happen. In the end, the result will be better for you because now you can find someone who is going to want to spend their time with you, whoever that may be." He had finished his first bowl and had moved on to his second bowl. Yugo smiled softly, knowing her young student was right. "Thank you, Naruto-kun, you're wiser than most give you credit for. Must have been all those beatings you took growing up." She smiled softly and then turned and began eating her ramen, talking with Naruto about random things, but mostly about his upcoming academy days. Flashback end. Suddenly, she heard a knock on the door, which caused her to jump. "Who is it?" "It's Snake, Inu, and Tori. Get dressed, we need to go, now." The voice spoke from behind the door. "Okay, give me a quick second." She frowned and looked at her body in the mirror one more time, hoping it was good enough for a man later down the road. She quickly threw on her Anbu outfit and grabbed her mask, putting it on and leaving. She saw her teammates and Snake waiting. "What's our mission?" "So much for a day off and lounging around. To arrest Fugaku Uchiha and bring him to torture and interrogation," Inu replied before jumping away towards the Uchiha compound with his teammates in tow. "Alright class, let's do a bit of taijutsu sparring. First up, Ino and Sakura. Please step into the circle, make the sparring sign of friendship and begin." The 2 girls stepped into the ring, glaring at each other, making the sign of friendship and took on the form they just learned in class. The match only lasted a few seconds, in which both Ino and Sakura managed to knock each other unconscious, causing the class to laugh. Iruka spoke up, announcing each set of sparring partners, each having a victor or coming to a draw. "Sasuke and Menma, please up to the circle." Both shinobi stepped into the circle. "You should just give up, Uchiha-san, you can't beat me," teased Naruto from behind his mask. "Shut it, Baka. I'm going to beat you and then rip that mask off your face." "You can try, but I can guarantee you it won't happen," he said, grinning as they both made the friendship sign and backed away from each other ready to fight. Naruto just stood there, waiting for Sasuke to run towards him, seeing him do so not a few seconds later. Naruto, not wanting to show off, blocked the punch to his face but took a knee to his stomach, which caused Sasuke to grin. "I told you, I'm going to beat you. I'm superior to you and always will be." Sasuke spoke, looking down at Naruto, reaching down to grab the mask. "Now let's see who's underneath this kitsune mask." Before Sasuke could grab the mask, Naruto had grabbed his wrist, spun Sasuke around, and kicked him in the back to push him forward and away from him. "And I told you, you're not getting this mask off me." Naruto came forward and reached out to punch Sasuke, not moving to let him block his punch as he brought his knee up to Sasuke's chest, causing him to become winded and kneel over trying to get his breath again. Naruto hunched down and looked at him. "Funny, the great superior Uchiha lost a tiny sparring match. You'll make a great friend and rival," he stated before pushing Sasuke onto his side and standing up, walking out of the circle to join his classmates, hearing them talk amongst themselves about who was better, the classroom ultimately being split into 2 fan groups. "Alright, now that the sparring is over," Iruka spoke as he looked down to see Sasuke getting up and breathing somewhat normally, though still holding his chest. Now we'll go back inside to learn about chakra nature and chakra control. Hi, Iruka-sensei. The class spoke in unison, falling into step behind him, each of the students talking to another. Naruto hung back to walk beside Sasuke. No hard feelings, Sasuke? I thought it was a good match. Naruto smiled, offering his newly acquired friend his hand. Sasuke looked at the boy offering his hand to him and shook it firmly, making sure to squeeze it a bit tightly. No hard feelings at all, you just got lucky. Should we ever fight again, you won't be so lucky. Sasuke released Naruto's hand and walked in front of him. Baka, I'll get you next time. The Anbu team arrived at the Uchiha compound and stopped at the entrance to the clan head's home. Snake, can you be the one to do the arresting? I don't want him to realize it's me when the charges are read to him. Inu spoke to his comrade. The white-haired snake Anbu nodded. Sure. I can do that, but you're going to have to put the chakra seals and restraints on him when I'm reading the charges, you too Neko. Tori, you'll be backup in case he decides to fight. The three Anbu members nodded as Snake stepped up and knocked on the door. Just a second, came a soft voice from inside the house. The door opened revealing a woman carrying a small child and looked at the four people in front of her. Can I help you? We need to speak with Fugaku Uchiha please ma'am, immediately. It's quite urgent and needs his attention. Spoke the white-haired Anbu, using a silver tongue to get his desired result. Sure, wait here. The woman left the door open and went back towards the hallway, calling down at, Fugaku-kun, a team of Anbu is here to see you. They need your advice on something. She heard a response and smiled as her husband began walking down the hallway to the door. Thank you Makoto-chan, please give us a minute? He spoke to his wife, kissing her softly before stepping outside and closing the door. What can I help you for with? Inu and Neko stepped around Fugaku and quickly placed 2 chakra seals on his wrists and chakra chains on him as Snake began to speak. You are hereby under arrest for treason, conspiracy against the land of fire, and premeditated murder. As a shinobi of the leaf, you are required to come quietly or risk execution. We will be escorting you to be questioned, after which the term of imprisonment will be up to the Hokage. You're making a mistake. I've done no such thing, but I will come quietly and cooperatively. Fugaku spoke as the Anbu he was surrounded by began leading him towards the torture and interrogation building. Fugaku sat in a chair, his hands and feet bound to the floor and arms of the chair. Each restraint he had on was held down with chakra absorption seals. He looked up to watch Ibiki come in. Good afternoon Ibiki. Surely you can let me go as the accusations here are falsified and incorrect. Sorry Fugaku, but I have my orders. Now, you will tell me everything you know about the coup d'état that the Uchiha clan is planning. I would suggest you be honest as I really would hate to use my tools on you. He spoke the last bit of the sentence with a twisted pleasure, as he enjoyed breaking someone's mind to the point that they spilled everything to him. I have no idea what you're talking about. There is no coup d'état. The Uchiha are happy with where we are at. Fugaku lied, not wanting to give out any information. He would have to implement every bit of his harsh training he received from his father to not break and spill his plans. Ibiki looked over to the one-sided mirror where the Anbu team and the Hokage stood before turning back towards Fugaku. One last chance Fugaku, and I'm being generous. Either tell me your plans or I'll begin a harsher way of extracting information from you. I told you, I have no information on any coup. Fugaku exclaimed, trying to sell his innocence. Ibiki grins as he walks over to a table of tools and picks up a syringe and flicks the needle. Walking over to Fugaku and sticks the needle into the mont's arm and injects the liquid into it. What the hell did you just inject into me? The Uchiha clan head asked, as he started to feel searing pain where anything was touching him. It's a serum that amplifies the nerve endings for pain, making the slightest touch. He emphasizes the word, touch, by sliding a finger down Fugaku's arm. Feel as if that area is being sliced open to the deepest part of your body and then burned. He finished as he listened to Fugaku's groaning of pain, grinning as he has begun to enjoy this interrogation. I can always make the pain stop by giving you the antidote, but I need answers. Now, you know my question. Answer it. Ibiki continued to ask questions, each time, the question being the same until finally, Fugaku's mentality broke. Yes. I planned a coup d'état to take the mantle of Hokage for my own. Now please make the pain stop. Fugaku pleaded. Why did you plan the coup d'état to begin with? Ibiki asked, sliding a feather over Fugaku's arm, listening to his screams. I was paid to plan it at first, but then I saw how much better the Land of Fire would be if under Uchiha control. Fugaku answered, not fighting anymore as the pain was beginning to be unbearable. Who paid you? Danzo. Danzo began to pack a bag and a few pouches, making sure he burned any scrolls that contained any information about his illegal activities and communications. In all his shady wisdom, he had forgotten to put a secrecy seal on Fugaku, thinking that his plans would have gone on without a hitch. He knew Itachi and Shisui would find out about the coup, but he didn't expect the Hokage to not listen to him. His plans at acquiring a mass amount of Sharingan had just gone out the window, and now, he needed to escape before Fugaku broke. He finished packing his stuff and planted exploding tags throughout his house, leaving quickly. He ran up the wall surrounding Konohagakure and looked down at his house, making a few seals. Doden. Bakuhatsu Chikyu. Earth style. Exploding earth. His house then exploded, debris flying everywhere. This will give me enough time to escape as the Anbu will be looking to see if there is a danger anywhere else. Danzo leapt off the wall and into the forest below, taking off in the direction of Iwagakure. Hiruzen frowned and hit his desk as he was told of Danzo's escape and his home being blown up. Danzo had many secrets about Konohagakure and he needed to be found and eliminated before someone else was able to capture him. That is, if they could actually defeat him. Danzo in his own right was at least a cage-level shinobi. Snake. Put Danzo's name into the Konohagakure bingo book. List every bit of data you can about him and put his bounty to 40 million ryo. I want him brought back as well, if at all possible, dead or alive. Hi. Snake bowed before Shunshin away to the logistics unit to give them the update. Damn it, Danzo. You were a good friend and a great military advisor. Why do you have to go and play me under the bus? Danzo ran through the trees of the Land of Fire, mentally berating himself for not putting a seal onto Fugaku so he wouldn't spill his name. He knew by now that he would be marked as a missing nin and placed in the bingo book. As for what rank or the amount of the bounty, he wasn't sure. He let the thoughts go as he headed towards Iwagakure. He stopped on a tree limb and took out a paper with a seal on it, before opening his mouth and placing the seal on his tongue. The paper melted away after being in contact with saliva while the seal burned itself into his tongue. He groaned as he felt the seal burn into his tongue, before continuing on his journey, pushing through the pain. He may have had secret dealings and may have done incredibly dangerous things, but if there's anything he was going to be remembered by, it wasn't going to be as a traitor. It's going to take at least a week to get to Iwagakure. Hopefully Oanoki will accommodate me, being an old friend of battle. Itachi, wearing his Anbu mask, walked towards the gates with his teammates and his father, Fugaku Uchiha. His father was condemned by the Hokage to 30 years at the Shinobi Correctional Facility, the Blood Prison. His father was lucky to get that. The only reason why Fugaku was being sent to prison was because Itachi had asked the council to allow him to live, so he can learn from his mistakes and come back to Konohagakure once his sentence was up. He stopped at the gates and looked at his teammates. Tori-san, I am placing you in charge as team captain. I cannot follow you on this mission, he stated to his friend. I understand, Inu-san. We'll be back in a week. Itachi nodded and left the ground, heading back to the Hokage's office. Under normal circumstances, he would have Shunshin into the office, but this meeting was probably one of the last he was going to have with the Hokage as an Anbu member. He knocked on the door and waited until he heard the Hokage's voice say, "Enter." He opened the door and walked in, bowing in front of the Hokage. Inu-san, shouldn't you be with your team escorting Fugaku Uchiha to the blood prison? Hiruzen asked. Yes, I should be, but I couldn't do it. Itachi took off his mask and placed it onto the Hokage's desk. Even though I know what I did was right, I still feel a little guilty about placing my father into a jail cell. So I am requesting you accept my resignation from the Anbu immediately. Itachi sighed. It was unlike him to really show emotion much, except towards his little brother. I would also like 3 weeks off from active duty before being placed onto missions again. Hiruzen picked up the mask that was set on his desk and inspected it. As was always the case with Itachi, it was in perfect condition. He set the mask down and grabbed his pipe, putting some tobacco leaves into it, before lighting it up and puffing. Your resignation is authorized. I understand your guilt all too well, Itachi-san. Hiruzen said, his thoughts trailing off to a time when he chased after one of his own teammates, a soft sigh pulling him out of his thoughts. However, I have a counter offer for you. Since Fugaku has been arrested, the Uchiha clan is without a head leader, correct? Itachi nodded, yes, and I am sure the clan will appoint their own head of clan when the time comes. They would, however, the leader would have to be accepted by me. Now, as you are the firstborn son of Fugaku, and a genius within your own right, I would like you to take the place of Fugaku as the head of the Uchiha clan. That would take you off active duty for the most part, unless I saw a need of your special talents, and it would also allow you to assist me with more internal matters of the village by being on the Shinobi Council. So what do you say? Itachi looked at the Hokage, stunned to be given such an offer on such short notice. He thought about everything that his father had taught him about being a clan head and nodded. I accept. I will go speak to the Uchiha clan about this myself. I will not let you down, Hokage-sama. He bowed and turned around, leaving the Hokage's office. I know you won't, Itachi. You've always been a loyal shinobi, Hiruzen said, puffing on his pipe. Time skip of 1 year. Alright class, we're going to take a test. I want to see what you all stand in class. Iruka says as he passes out papers to each of the students. Little do they know, this is an IQ test. He walked back to his desk and opened a drawer, picking up a book that was part of the Icha Icha series, the second book of the installment. He was able to read for a half hour before the first test was given to him by a boy with black hair pulled back into a spiky hairdo, sporting a gray shirt and black pants. Thanks, Shikamaru. Shikamaru looked at his teacher before walking back to his desk to lay his head down, looking out the windows at the clouds. How troublesome. Why do I even bother coming to the academy? Maybe it's cause of my Ka-san. She can be real mean when things don't go as she says. Of course, my father doesn't help much either. Why can't I just be a cloud? Float along without a care in the world. Iruka sat back in the chair and watched the class as one by one. They gave him their tests, the last ones being Sasuke and Menma. He had noticed that those two had formed a good friendship and rivalry, always pushing the other. On one hand, Sasuke hated it when Menma beat him in anything, on the other, Menma just seemed to enjoy having some friendly competition. Though why Menma wore his mask all the time continued to baffle him. What are you hiding from Menma? Alright class, take an hour recess break. When you come back, I should be done grading your papers. He watched as the class left, Menma and Sasuke fighting about who finished first, before picking up a pen and beginning to grade the tests. I finished first, Baka. Just admit it, Sasuke said as he punched Menma lightly in the arm. Did not. I did, Naruto exclaimed back as they went to the shuriken posts. Little did they know that each of them had the entire class following them. How about we settle this with an accuracy contest? Sasuke offered, picking up 5 shuriken. No jutsu, just throwing. The one who gets the closest to the center of each target wins. Naruto looked over at the posts that were well worn from shuriken and kunai throws. Deal, but when I win, you have to say that I'm better than you. Naruto grinned, teasing his friend. Fine, Sasuke said as he took stance and threw the shuriken at the post, each one hitting the designated target in the center. Perfect hits. Good luck, Menma-san. Sasuke walked up and grabbed his shuriken, turning back to the circle as he listened to his group of people cheer. In his group was a boy with a dog on his head who he knew as Kiba, a girl with pink hair and a large forehead, her name was Sakura, Shino, who seemed to be more of a loner than anything else, and Choji, who was always eating bags of chips, which would explain why he was fatter than everyone else. Naruto stepped up and grinned at Sasuke as he too threw his shuriken, each of them hitting the posts in the same spots as Sasuke's. So, what do you want to challenge me in now, Sasuke-san? Naruto grinned as he walked over and grabbed his shuriken, turning back and walking to stand next to Sasuke, noting the people cheering for him in his little group. He noticed a small blonde girl with long hair first. He knew her as Ino. Then there was the shy and bashful Hinata, an all-too enthusiastic boy named Lee, and finally an aspiring kunoichi named Tenten. How about a sparring contest? Sasuke asked. He had beaten Naruto a few times, though he also remembered the times when he was beaten. Though, usually when he was beaten, he was either winded or covered in paint. Fine, we can spar. First one to leave the circle loses. Naruto stated as he walked to the edge of one of the sparring circles, barely standing on the inside of it. I'll even make it easy for you, Uchiha-san. He teased his rival. Sasuke walked over and rolled his eyes. Fine, but no clones. I'm tired of having to change clothes and my mom keeps asking me how I keep getting paint on me. Sasuke grumbled, remembering how much trouble he had got into the last time he came home with painted clothes. Fine, I won't use any clones. Come at me then, Naruto said as he watched Sasuke run towards him, noticing he had a one-tomo Sharingan activated. So you really do want to beat me? Is that why you're using your Sharingan? He grinned to himself as he knocked Sasuke's punch away from him, moving his leg just a tad to take a hit from a kick, before moving his leg back under Sasuke's and pushing him, making Sasuke fall to the ground with ease. Rule number 1, never underestimate your opponent. Isn't that what Iruka-sensei taught us? Naruto lectured, looking down at Sasuke. Yeah. Why do you wear that mask? What are you hiding underneath? Sasuke asked as he stood up and punched Naruto in the chest as he left himself open. Here's a rule, don't let your opponent sidetrack you with meager conversations. Sasuke said as he watched Naruto's footstep outside of the circle. I win. You stepped out of the circle. All around the circle was the two groups giving a respective cheer or sigh from their idols winning or losing. Yeah, I guess I did. However, what's underneath my mask doesn't concern you. You'll find out soon enough what's under this mask, when I feel it's okay. Sasuke frowned, wanting to know what was so secretive about that mask. We should get back to class, the hour is almost up. A resounding "ah" could be heard all around the circle as the students walked back towards the academy. About time they finished their incessant fighting, don't you think, Shikamaru? The pale-eyed student spoke up as he offered a hand to the relaxing student. Shikamaru took the hand of his friend, Neji, and let him help him up off the ground. Their fighting is incredibly troublesome and loud. I just want to get this academy training over with, even though that will only cause more work for me. Come on, Shikamaru, it's not that bad. One must follow their destiny to the end. Neji spoke up as he walked with Shikamaru back to class. As the students walked back into class and sat down at their desks. Alright, the test you took was an IQ test. After looking over and grading the tests, I am quite surprised at all of your scores. However, I am not going to tell you what your scores were. If you want to see them, come to me after class to get your tests. Otherwise, the tests will be put into your file and added to your record. Iruka spoke, looking around at the students. Bet I got a higher score than you, Baka. Sasuke whispered to the masked boy next to him. Only one way to find out. He whispered back. Alright, now for today, we're going to go over the 3 demonstration tests you will be having to go through next year to graduate. Danzo was shaken awake by his newest teammate, Kisame Hoshigaki of the 7 Swordsmen. Get up, Danzo-san, we need to get moving. Pain-sama wants us to pick up more mercenary missions. Honestly, I don't see why you joined us in the first place, considering you branded yourself with a secrecy seal. Unlike you, Kisame of the Mist, I am not a traitor to my village. Missing Nin, yes. Violent leader, sure. Traitor, no. Danzo stood up and grabbed his straw hat, putting it on, looking at his right ring finger which now had a ring on it. He had done some research on the ring and found out that it allowed astral projection as well as telepathic communication from their leader. He also learned that this ring belonged to a previous member of the Ataksuki, who was killed by Kisame for saying the wrong things to him. You know, Kisame-san, we really should get to work on finding the Jinchuriki. Especially since a few of them travel from land to land. Danzo spoke up, as he walked with Kisame to a mercenary outpost. We have our orders, Danzo-san. We are to complete mercenary missions until your loyalty can be trusted and your abilities are fully tested. Kisame spoke, not enjoying the fact that he had to be paired with a newer member of the Akatsuki, even though his partner could go toe-to-toe with him. Flashback. Danzo was sitting in a bar in a small town a few miles away from Iwagakure. He had been allowed a temporary stay there for a few months, but the council of Iwagakure didn't trust him enough to let him stay, so he had to leave. Since then, he just stayed on the outskirts of the village, waiting for anything to show up that would allow him to show he can be an asset. He sensed a man walk in with incredible chakra levels. Danzo Shimura of the Hidden Leaf. I am here for the bounty on your head. Come quietly or I'll have to take you by force. The shinobi spoke. He was dressed in a black cloak with red clouds on it and carried a sword wrapped in bandages. He waited as Danzo turned around, eyeing his quarry with a feral grin. Danzo looked at the man, who seemed to have a fish-like nature. Blue skin, what appeared to be gills underneath his eyes, and shark-like teeth. Kisame Hoshigaki, missing Nin of the Mist. Should be fun to collect your bounty as well. Let's take this outside because the only way you can take me is if you kill me. Kisame grinned, I hoped you would say that. He turned and let Danzo lead the way to where he wanted to fight him, remembering what his leader had said to him, do not kill him. Test his abilities and if he passes by your standards, bring him to me for recruitment. If he fails your test, then you may kill him. He walked for a good 30 minutes before Danzo turned around. So, how much is my bounty? Danzo asked, as he rolled up his sleeves, looking at Kisame. 40 million and it says you're also in S rank with great abilities. I do hope you can give me a good show, I'd hate to kill you with ease. Kisame grinned, as he pulled his bandaged sword off his back. 40 million, who knew I was worth so much? Danzo grinned as he made a few hand signs, so then let's get started shall we? Dayton. Garando Konagona. Earth release. Ground shatter. The ground underneath Kisame quickly crumbling away as he jumped into the air, only to be met with another jutsu from Danzo. Futon. Shinku Renpa. Wind release. Vacuum blast barrage. Danzo watched on as his jutsu hit Kisame with enough force to slam him into a tree. Kisame stood up as if nothing happened and popped his neck, so, you are serious. Good, this will be more fun. He charged towards Danzo and began a taijutsu fight with him, while swinging his sword at Danzo, hoping to get just a few hits. The fight lasted for 2 hours, ultimately ending up in a stalemate between the two because Danzo kept eating soldier pills to restore his chakra while Kisame kept drawing chakra from his famous sword, Samahata, which was no longer wrapped in its bandage. Danzo was panting on the ground, looking up at Kisame, so, how much longer are we going to go at this? He asked of his opponent. Kisame growled and leaned against his sword. You pass. Come with me. There is someone you need to meet. Thought you said you were turning me in for a bounty. What's your real game? Danzo asked curiously. Kisame grinned and shook his head. That was only a ploy to get you to fight me so I could test you and your abilities. However, since you passed, I won't have to kill you because we want to offer you a position within our organization, but I'll let Pain-sama explain more about it to you. The old war hawk looked at Kisame. Alright, let's go. He thought to himself, knowing that he could use this information to get back into the good graces of Konohagakure, or at least he hoped he could. Flashback end. Danzo rolled his eyes at his partner. Even though he could probably stand to fight on equal terms with every one of the members, the fact that they didn't trust him completely didn't surprise him in the least. He just shrugged his shoulders and walked with his partner into the outpost that handed out mercenary missions. It doesn't matter if you scored 3 points higher than me or not, Dobi. I'm still smarter than you, spoke an angry raven-haired student. The test says otherwise, face it. I have a 173 IQ and you have a 170 IQ. I'm smarter. Naruto threw back at his friend and rival. Just cause it says one thing on a test doesn't make it true. Sasuke grumbled as he walked away from the academy, the rest of his fellow classmates following suit except Ino and Tenten, who wanted to get some alone time with the masked boy. Menma-kun, there you are. I was wondering when you guys would be let go for the day. Yugo said as she hugged Naruto. Yugo-chan, I missed you, Naruto said, hugging Yugo tightly. You look different when not wearing your shinobi gear. Prettier if I could say. He smiled, blushing lightly behind his mask. Ino and Tenten looked on in amazement, while little chibi versions of themselves were strangling a chibi version of Yugo. Menma-kun, Yugo-chan, who the hell is this lady? And how does she know Menma so well to be called Chan? Ino looked at Yugo, taking in the fact that she was definitely more woman than either of them. However, Ino could tell that she was older than Naruto obviously, and everyone knew that a guy never got with an older girl. She grinned to herself as she walked up to her classmate. Hey Menma-kun, want to go practice throwing shuriken or go get something to eat? Sure thing Ino, let me just talk with Yugo-chan for a few minutes and I'll catch up. He said, giving Ino a thumbs up before walking away with Yugo and tilting his head up to look at her. She wasn't that much taller than him. He ventured to guess she was about 5 feet 4 inches, while he was just shy of 4.5. He knew he would catch up to her in height over time, so what's up Yugo-chan? Normally you come to the house when you want to train or talk. Naruto smiled as he walked over to the opposite side of the field, before Yugo stopped. Ino and Tenten looked on in amazement at the boldness of this new woman, showing their rookie classmate a necklace that looked incredibly expensive. They both muttered to themselves as their chibi versions inside their heads kept strangling the chibi version of Yugo. Tenten, you should go home. He won't have enough time to practice with both of us. Ino spoke up to her classmate, who was better at shuriken throwing than she was. No, it's okay. I'm not doing anything for a while anyway. Besides, I can't let you hog Menma-kun all to yourself, can I? Tenten grinned, noticing that Ino obviously wanted to be alone with Menma as much as she did. Naruto looked at the necklace Yugo was showing him and smiled. What does it matter how much I spent on it? It was a gift, he said, hoping to be able to get out of the question with ease. I'm curious. It matters to me. I just want to know if it's something I should wear while doing missions or if it's something I should hold privately so as not to lose it. Yugo said before putting the amulet back into its original position. If you really want to know. It cost about 1.5 million ryo as the silver is pure and the amethyst is completely genuine. Naruto said, smiling again, having no idea about the rule of silver jewelry. Oh wow, that expensive. Wow, yeah, I think it's best if I keep it safe when I'm on missions. I'd hate to lose it in a fight. She responded, rubbing the chain softly, smiling softly to herself. Alright, thanks Menma-kun. We should have dinner again sometime. She said, kissing Naruto on the forehead and shunshin-ing away, which only caused the other two girls to start grinding their teeth together and getting tick marks on their foreheads. Naruto beckoned the other two girls to join him as they wanted to practice shuriken throwing, not that Tenten needed it. Besides, himself and Sasuke, Tenten was the only one who could get a perfect hit every time. It was Ino who spoke up first, Menma-kun. Who was that and how do you two know each other? Naruto thought about it for a moment. He couldn't exactly tell her that she was his sensei and that he's been training for a couple years. Nor could he tell her that he was someone other than what she knows him as currently. We've been friends for a few years now. We bumped into each other at Ichiraku Ramen and our friendship grew from there. Okay, so what was she showing you about her necklace? Tenten asked curiously, clenching her fists together, mad that another woman was showing interest in her classmate. Naruto blushed slightly. She was just asking how much I think it costed and how it looked on her. He lied quickly. Ino looked at the masked boy, irritated that she couldn't tell if he was lying or telling the truth, especially with that kitsune mask on him. Which ultimately made her wonder what he looked like underneath that mask. He smiled at them both from behind the mask and said, alright, so who's going to be up first?
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.